Welcome to day 2 at DreamHack Winter. I'm your host, Glitter Explosion, and with me at the desk are Supersonic and Rich. We're at our second stop in the Elite Series, which is an H1Z1 global competitive circuit that provides players with an arena to compete at a high level, showcase their talent, and win some serious prize money. Yesterday we focused on solos. Today we're going to be focusing on the team event. But before we do that, we're actually going to go into a recap video that will show just what exactly those 120 players had to go through in order to get those 40 slots into the finals. Hey everybody, and welcome to DreamHack Winter. Today, it's all about the solo qualifiers.
The players are all warmed up, which means we get to kick off DreamHack Winter right here live from Sweden. Our kill feed is lighting up. Only 17 players are going to remain. Just like that, Drop is going to be taken out.
And he is going to eliminate Beast as well, and we do have our winner from game 1. FJ going off, getting a lot of kills there in that top 10.
How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling pretty pumped.
We're ready to jump on into our second game of Group A. Reptar now around the rock is going to be taken down, and his kill feed is still lit up, but it is going to be Gwesmer who finds some really great shots to start things off. But Mates picking up his 6th kill right now.
I wish you the best of luck on Sunday.
Thank you so much.
We are jumping straight into Group B. Now these closer engagements are starting to happen left and right.
And now we've got Adrian right there, and Sloth with a nasty shot there.
Let's see if he can close it out. And he's going to finish it just by the skin of his teeth with only 3 remaining.
Honestly, it was a pretty easy game, so.
We are going to go ahead and drop into this second game, the final one of the qualifiers here.
All of a sudden, we are seeing everybody fall down. Only 24 players are going to remain.
Neither one of these guys are wanting to really move. Where neither player able to connect with these shotguns, swaps to the AR, gets the finish after taking a hit.
Tomorrow, we're going to be peeling away from solos a little bit. We're actually going to dive into that team play as well.
We'd like to say thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow. I'd really just like to touch on those games yesterday for a little bit, guys. There were some awesome plays that we did on that recap video. What were your highlights for yesterday?
I mean, there are too many to mention to start. I mean, you could already hear in the video we were screaming like madmen throughout the entire day. Sound like a bunch of hype cicadas, but Atixi was one of the players that really stood out to me throughout the entire course of play, getting some plays that I just haven't seen before.
Yeah, Triv was my favorite one yesterday. The jump off the church to the ATV chase down SMG to swap to AR to get that last shot long range. That was one of my favorite ones. Sloth yesterday. Sloth came in huge. Ended up doing that inside the church with
FJ was awesome
around.
as well. But yeah, the inside the church play was a really great one to watch as well.
Yeah, definitely those ending. I think we got a lot of really hype kills right at the end of matches. So the end of the matches felt really hyped up. So
and also, yeah, one of the big things was too, we saw a lot of the players that were actually finishing at the higher end, if it was 1st or 2nd place, having the highest amount of kills. So it was one of those situations where they would really slay out towards the end of the game, and that's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's always better to see the end of a match kind of have the 5 kills or 6 kills rather than somebody kind of getting the 1 kill at the end and winning. It's always more hype when that guy that's on fire and kind of rolling through it ends up getting the win.
Yeah.
So we're actually going to be taking a look at all of the players that qualified yesterday. Let me know if any of those names jump out at you.
Yeah, I think, well, one of the main talking points for me when we're going to look at these solo finalists, we're going to see as well. We're going to see them represented by teams. You can see some of their tags here right now. Players like Oliver are going to be here for Method, some of the players that we mentioned, but on the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to see these invited players that we haven't seen at this tournament. We definitely know a lot of these names because they have qualified in tournament play. They made it to be an invited player. They walked straight into the final. So obviously, they do have many accolades behind them to get them in that position, but we haven't seen them here. So that is something that we're going to get to see tomorrow, and really excited to see what they can do here in Sweden.
I mean, and yeah, you just mentioned it. We actually are going to be focusing a lot on teams today. So for those of you who don't know, there are already 5 teams that are currently qualified into the finals for Sunday. Today, we're actually going to be watching 2 group stages, where within each group stage, we're going to be having 12 teams fighting for the remaining 7 slots for those team finals. Now, are you guys kind of hoping any underdogs come out of these qualifying games? Are you looking forward to seeing anybody playing today?
I mean, I'm pretty hyped for quite a few of these teams. There's a lot of them that, I mean, all these guys are top tier players. All these teams are going to be able to possibly make it in. But in this first group here, there's definitely some guys like Mockett. Love a lot of the guys over there. Mountain FPS, one of the guys that runs the Revenge EU tournaments. He's casted a ton of, so a little bit of caster love for Mountain. We'd love to see them show up. So Mockett's one of those guys that I want to really see make it through.
The big thing for me, as I already started to mention, is going to be seeing these players that we saw in solos now playing with teams, seeing how they change their strategy. If they're a heavy slayer, are they going to continue to be a heavy slayer for their team, or are they going to try to fill a different role? Really excited for that. But also, there are teams that have players that weren't in solos at all. I see quite a few of them, or we didn't actually get to see them at the top. Then maybe now today, when they are actually in this team play, they'll perform at a higher level. They'll be able to come out here and get some work done on the second day.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a ton of players that are doing that. We're also seeing some swaps on teams, too. It'll be interesting. I know that Stomp Little is going to be filling in for Anna on Set to Destroy, so maybe he'll be able to show up big and do his friend proud. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they adjust to having to swap somebody on the team. I know there's a couple other teams that had some player swaps too, so seeing if they can maybe make a connection without having the practice time together is going to be pretty interesting to watch.
And I'm definitely really excited to get into those games, and we're actually going to be bringing up Flamehopper with us here in a minute. But before we do that, for those of you who might be unfamiliar with H1Z1, let's take a quick look at what exactly this event's all about.
Welcome to H1Z1, a fast-paced, action-packed, single-elimination, massive arena shooter. Each match begins with up to 150 players dropping into the arena across a 100 square kilometer map. You start the game with nothing, so once your feet hit the ground, be ready to grab weapons, gear, and vehicles as you get into the action. Watch out, because as the match progresses, a toxic green gas begins creeping into the arena, pushing everybody towards the safe zone. You can survive the gas for a short time, but the longer the match goes, the deadlier it becomes. And if the gas doesn't kill you, there are 149 other players trying to. So play it smart and make every shot count, because only the last person standing will claim victory, and then the whole battle begins again.
So, with me at the desk, I actually have Flamehopper. How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. I'm happy to be here. There's no better reason to be in Sweden than to play video games with a community that I love.
Right?
Uh-huh.
Well, first off, belated congratulations on the first place win at DreamHack Atlanta.
Thank you
How
very,
did that
very much.
feel?
It felt amazing. It felt amazing. Like, there's a lot of thoughts going through your head when you're playing on LAN. Like, am I going to be able to perform for my team and for the organization and for the fans and for everybody? And I was really, really happy with the way things went. I couldn't be happier with playing with a better group of guys. Really, really proud of how everybody played.
Hard to be upset when you take down a win. I mean, it's really difficult.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, also, though, you talk about some, like, actually thinking about playing for your team. Do you think it's more stressful to actually be playing for the team, or is it more stressful being in solos without having anyone to back you up?
I don't know. They're both very different. They're stressful in different ways. Like when you're playing by yourself, you don't have a team that has your back, and you don't feel like you're working together as a team. It's just all on you. But when you are working with a team, you don't want to let anybody down because the stakes are higher, in my opinion. I'm a very team-focused player, so I really, really want to do well for my team. And for solos, if I do poorly, then I'm just letting myself down. But I'd rather let myself down than let my team down.
Yeah, and that's completely understandable. And speaking of, those feelings of pressure, you guys also pulled down third place at Fight for the Crown, so you're kind of emerging as one of the most consistent teams currently in all these events. Do you feel like there's any added pressure for you guys as a group or even as individuals coming into this knowing that there are higher expectations?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some added pressure where we've done well in the past, so we want to prove that wasn't just luck, that wasn't just coincidence, that we're actually a consistent team, that we can do it again on LAN. We can practice, we can boot camp, we can grind it out as hard as we can, but when you go to LAN, that's when it really, really counts. So we just want to show up and perform today, or tomorrow rather.
Well, speaking of performances, and obviously, you're an incredibly talented competitive player.
Thank you.
But I believe that you also have some other talents that people enjoy. So we have a kind of a competition set up for you right now. We're actually going to have you do some juggling on camera, which is totally...
Right. I think you've done it once or twice before.
Which is
Got to warm up.
That's a little easy, right? Which felt a little too easy for us. So we decided we're kind of going to turn it into a rapid-fire question session.
Rapid-fire questions and juggling. That's a lot of multitasking. Crikey.
So you're going to have to be answering questions while you're juggling.
All righty. All right. Well, I have my fruit
There may or may
here.
not be consequences to a wrong answer.
You get disqualified from the tournament.
I believe.
Wait, who
I believe
told
we
him?
do have some
That
consequences.
was supposed to be a surprise.
I felt like it might have been a little too cruel.
I felt like we'd hold on. No, that's the surprise one. That one's for you.
Oh, really?
Oh, that's
Hold on that
dangerous.
for now. Yeah.
Let's do this.
All right, should I begin? Are we
3,
ready?
2, 1.
Well, is
Go.
there like a time? Like, do you have a time limit? Are you able to juggle for a certain amount of time, or is this just something you can
I
do
think
forever?
my record on my stream for the longest that I've ever juggled consecutively is 2 minutes and 35 seconds.
Okay.
So that's my current record.
All right, let's destroy that record.
Are you ready? Favorite spawn?
Oh, goodness. PV police station.
Favorite weapon?
AR-15.
Favorite makeshift skin? Kaiba.
Peanutty Princess.
So
2 + 2 - 3 is what?
Quick maths.
Oh!
He wins. He wins. He literally. I don't get to throw an orange at him.
all right. Are you familiar with granola bars?
Oh, yes, I am.
Okay, so
This
then
question is so stupid.
how does the granola stick together, but it doesn't stick to your fingers?
Jiminy, Christmas. I went to college, but I didn't learn that.
Yeah, nobody has.
Solos or
That's a
fives?
good question. So say that again?
Solos or fives?
Ooh, probably fives with a team.
Are you excited for the Z1 remaster?
I am super excited for the Z1 remaster. It's super nostalgic. That's the map that I learned on, and I'm excited to see it come back in a new format.
More hype for Z1 remastered or more hyped for H1 Pro League?
Oh, that's like
Ooh.
choosing between toast and fruit. I don't know. They're both
Toast-
amazing.
toast-
Is
Straight.
this fruit the same to you?
Fruit wins.
Can you
fruit?
can you do more items than 3?
No, I actually can't. I'm not a
Have you
very
ever-
good juggler.
have you
I'm
ever
sweating
tried,
here.
though?
I have tried.
It's gonna be dangerous.
I've sat in my.
Sometimes you have to push the bird out of the nest.
Oh gosh!
I'm sorry.
He dropped one. What happens when you drop one?
I feel like we could. I feel like you just crushed it. I feel like now they're asking for a whole lot. I think you've done well.
Yeah, well, we didn't make a clear decision on how the game ended. We
Well,
just-
because he wasn't supposed to
I
be
think it-
as
I think it
good
ended-
at this
will
as
go out.
he is. He
I
just
think it ended
keeps
when you threw a
going.
banana at him.
Yeah, we can. I think you beat the game.
Oh,
That was a good throw.
I was not
Woo!
expecting one to come back my way. That definitely threw me for a loop there.
Well, thank you for doing that.
Thank you for allowing me to. Man, I'm all warmed up. I was cold from the cold weather today, but now we're good.
Well, before we wrap this up, I feel like you'd be a good person to ask. Do you have any advice for these guys that are going to be playing today?
Yeah, just like don't stress. Everybody that's playing here today, you've earned your right to play here today. You've been grinding it out. You've been training. You've been practicing. You know what you need to do. You know how to do it. You just have to go up and perform. There's going to be like a natural amount of nerves that everybody has just because they're playing on a stage. They're playing on a big venue and everybody's watching. But you're all amazing players. And just go out and play your heart out. What I always like to think about and what I always like to say is like the work time leads up to this moment. Now you just get to go up and have fun and do what you do.
That's true. You guys have any other questions for Flamehopper?
I think he answered literally my only question. I was hoping he was going to say 1 so I could throw something at him, but he came back with the quick math. So
You just shut down. He had a plan going into
You
that.
ruined
He
it.
thought he was going to be so clever, and
Flamehopper
you
doesn't
shut it
know
down
this
so
meme.
fast.
I
impressed,
expected you
though.
to know it. I just wasn't expecting you to be able to focus enough to be able to get that answer. So, but you did well.
See, when you juggle fruit, it actually unlocks the other 20% of your brain or something like that.
Well, thank you
that
so
how that
much.
works?
Thank you so much for coming up here and
Of
hanging out
course,
with
it's
me.
my
That was
pleasure. Thank you for
incredibly,
putting up with my
incredibly fun.
silliness.
I need
we
to start
wish you
juggling fruit.
nothing
Yeah,
but the best of luck on Sunday.
My life changed.
I feel like it's the
day
other
I started
80% for me
juggling
though.
fruit.
That's like I would have to unlock. Like I feel like I'm missing a little bit more than 20.
I'm just jazzed I got to
I feel like
eat
that's a
an
generous
apple,
number,
the
though,
flame
Super.
hopper touch.
I used to be a 10-kill gamer until I started juggling fruit.
Now you're a 20 kill gamer.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Anyway, well,
And-
thank you very much for having me here.
No problem.
All right, so for everybody out there in the world of chat, don't forget you can claim your bandana up until Monday at 9:01 a.m. That is CET time, correct? Yes. Want to make
Yeah,
sure that I'm
yeah,
not giving
CET
bad
time.
information to the masses.
Yeah, CET.
So you can claim your bandana. Just go to h1z1.com/Elite Series Bandana. h1z1.com/Elite Series Bandana. Log into your account, get it redeemed, and you have up until Monday morning.
Quick, spell bandana.
Crushed it. We're going to send it back on over to Super
Oh, we're not
Rich
doing
now.
that anymore? All right. So it was awesome to get to have you on, but it looks like it's time to start to get ready to jump into teams. Really excited for this. We should start to talk about the format a little bit. It's going to look relatively similar, though, to what we saw yesterday with solos.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's gonna be a little bit different. A few less teams are gonna make it in. We don't have 40 total players making it in from these two groups. We will be taking the top 3 from each group to join those pre-qualified teams on the other side. Plus, we're going to add in the 7th overall. So total score between the two groups, you're going to have those top 3, and then one of those 2 4th-place teams in one of the brackets will win. The one with the higher overall score is going to be bumped up, and they'll be joining those teams as well tomorrow to fight for their share of that prize money.
The most stressful way to ever get to Championship Sunday. The big thing, if you come in with that 7th place, you have to be watching both Group A and Group B. You have to somewhat depend. It's more stressful if you are
for Group A. Yeah,
exactly,
absolutely.
because you don't know how Group B is going to perform, but you pretty much have to be sitting there. It's out of your hands at that point, so you definitely want to try to lock yourself in as quickly as possible. But the big thing is we're going to whittle it down to just 12 teams for when we get there tomorrow for the actual finals. But we want to make sure you guys are ready to watch before we jump in the game. If you didn't get a chance to watch yesterday, the Versus Bar is going to be back. This is the 2nd tournament that we've gotten to use it. It's just improved watching the esports so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to see all of the details at the bottom that you normally can't. You can't see what weapon they have out. You couldn't see, what weapon they're currently equipped, what the health of their vehicle was. There was a lot of things that you couldn't get before until this Versus Bar came in, and now you can see all those details. So you can really kind of keep track of what's going on with the players in the combat and seeing when they make decisions like changing a weapon, or maybe they're low on ammo and they're forced to have to try and take another route, and you can actually see that change and maybe what's going on in their head and have a little bit more insight into what they're doing.
It's definitely enhanced the viewing experience quite a lot, but there's another thing that you can do if you want to kick it up to the next level. You can actually jump onto www.h1z1.com/watch. If you go there, you're going to see nonstop statistics live updated. It's pretty great. We actually usually have the laptop open here and use the stats from that, so we're making sure that we don't miss anything either. And the other thing that you need to do if you want to make sure that you don't miss any of the H1Z1 action is jump over to the Twitter sphere and hit that with a follow, and you'll be able to know everything that's going on, whether it is the giveaways, whether it is a match starting. Definitely make sure to drop that a follow.
Yep. The Twitter will be also highlights, other things in case maybe you can't watch live. You'll be able to get a little bit more details there and kind of keep up, and also know that you can always go back and you'll be able to rewatch these too. So if you do miss out a little bit, you can always go back and rewatch over on the Twitch channel.
That's a big deal when we are over here in Sweden for DreamHack Winter, kicking off the 2nd stop of the H1Z1 Elite Series. The NA people probably asleep right now.
Yeah.
A good deal of them. So if you do want to watch that match, if you're watching, they would. If they weren't watching, though, I guess, hey, they'll figure it out. They can watch the VOD. Jump in, watch the VODs a little bit later. But let's talk about what is going to go down when we jump into these matches and start things off. Going to be teams today. Lauren already asked, are there any teams you're keeping your eyes on?
Yeah, so 3 that I'm looking at from this first group, just for me personally, obviously I wanted to see Mocket. I've already said that, a little bit of caster love there for Mountain FPS and the guys. So I'd love to see them show up. Set to Destroy, I talked about a little bit. I'd like to see Stomp show up big, filling in for Ana. So definitely looking forward to see him play. And as the original manager for the Rogue roster, I'm always kind of a little bit of a fanboy there and would like to see those guys do well. So those are the 3 I'm looking at for this first Group A.
And as you can see right now on your screen, those are all the teams that are going to be competing in Group A. And as we already alluded to with the format, they're going to be playing not 1, but 2 games today. Cumulative score, the top team's going to be going through into the championships. But there is still that hope with that team that is the top 7th overall team. So if we do see at the end of those 2 games, your favorite team didn't make it in, they're right on the bubble, they still do have hope. They still do have hope to make it through to Sunday. But now that we've started to see all the teams, let's dive in a little bit more. You've already started to highlight some of the teams that you really think can perform here. But what is different about teams compared to solos? We have a lot of new viewers watching for the first time for the H1Z1 Elite Series. If they watched yesterday, that was their first experience, what can they expect to change today?
Game's going to pacing at the start a little bit slower. You're not 60 people spread across the map. You basically want to think of the teams as like individuals. So you've basically got 15 teams. So fights break out a little bit later in the match. Sometimes you get some early ones, so you might see a few more kills if an early game engagement does break out. But the early game plays a little bit slower. The end game, though, is super accelerated. It's a lot more explosive, and teams play different than solos in the sense that you are now working as a unit. You can now watch all angles. You're not having to look one direction. You've got 5 guys. You can call out everything. It now comes down to team communication and laying out your plan. I think one of the biggest things that gets overlooked in H1 and in just Battle Royale esports is your ability to say, here's where the safe zone's going, here's where I need to get, these are my possible avenues of best cover or best positions to have lines of sight on other teams. So this is the path that we have. Which one's the best one for us? And deciding multiple points ahead of time how many steps you're going to make if you don't get that safe zone lock and have the safe zone pull to you. You need to have your plan in place already and then have really good team comms to be able to know what's going on around you.
You started to talk about how much safe zones really are going to affect these players. One of the biggest things we saw yesterday in solos, the rings that we saw coming out of Group A and Group B were both very different, and this time we're going to have to see how it's going to influence it. But it is time to kick off day number 2. It is time to kick off teams live from Sweden. Let's take a look at this break, Jason.
Yeah, so it's a little bit harder to determine where that first safe zone is going to go because it is basically dropping these guys in as the individual teams and not dropping them in as the full 60 across. So we've got 12 spawns, so it's going to be a little hard to determine. Looking like it's going to shift a little bit left just based upon the number, a little bit to the west based on the number that are there. But we'll have to see where that first one goes. The other thing that you're going to notice today is that you are going to see outlines and colors in this, and you'll be able to tell what team's what when you're fighting. When they all get close, you'll be able to see purple is currently going to be Myth, orange is going to be Beast off of Gangstars here. So you'll see the team colors as well, which is going to make it a lot better for the viewers at home to be able to keep up with the action.
Exactly. Now, as you can see right now, this is the first match of the day. So for any new viewers, just to give a bit of an overview, you can see the players moving through this building right now, trying to grab as much loot as possible. All the players dropped in with absolutely nothing on their back. So right now, they need to pick up weapons. They need to pick up backpacks. They need to pick up ammo. They need to grab everything. What is that ideal setup for teams? Does it change a lot compared to solos?
It definitely changes a little bit. So you're typically going to have there's usually somebody on the team that's maybe your grenadier or your guy that's using explosive tips or using something that's used to disrupt another team's flow, right? So there's usually somebody on a team that is that guy. You're going to see E-tips out there a little bit more often today than we did yesterday in solos.
We never see E-tips in solos, and then yesterday Piney just breaks them out, and you could see how disruptive it was, though. I think that is one of the best ways to describe it, because when you think you have really good cover, all of a sudden you have those E-tips just harassing you, forcing you off the location, can really bully you out of cover.
Getting grenaded is really a rough situation. It jars you. It kind of puts you under a stress situation because you know that one nade can kill you in my outside range, and you can typically determine how far a grenade throw is. Trying to determine how far an E-tip's going to go is much more difficult. They can basically grenade you from extreme distances, so that's a little rough. One of the other things that I noticed, though, just for the people at home to make it easier for them to follow, Team Knights, which is going to be Howie, Jerk, Memo, Wild, all those guys, they are Sir Wild, Sir Howie, because they are Knights, obviously. So the guys with the Sir on the front of their name is going to be Team Knights, just for the people at home so they can follow along.
Okay, all right. Well played. As you can see, the ring is now going to be this is similar to what we saw out of Qualifier A for solos. It was up towards this area. It was a little bit higher north, and it actually lost a little bit to those ridges, made less of a play zone here. This has quite a bit of PV in it as well. How much is that actually going to change this initial ring?
This ring is fully playable. There's a little bit of water that's going to eat stuff up, and nobody's really going to play those areas anyways. This is still center safe zone. Solos played that out yesterday. Five's going to play the same way today. We're going to see a lot of guys pushing early to get that center safe zone so that they don't have to move as often or as quickly as other teams may have to. You don't want to have to move unless you are forced to, or if you determine that there's a spot available that you think is better that you can move to. So a lot of these guys will play center safe zone, which is right around where Hanson is, actually. This area of the map is pretty close. We're right near the fairgrounds. So fairgrounds is still in play. It could be a fairgrounds ending.
I want to see some weird strategies come out. We've already talked about explosives. We talked about E-tips a little bit. But one of the things that we haven't really talked about is I do want to point out right now, Hanson trying to get some damage into that vehicle. That is super important here in teams. But, that's a little bit rough. Did you see that inside of the kill feed there?
Not sure what happened there, but yeah, Nerve just lost a few players. Somebody died in an explosion, and it said that one of them killed two. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
It seemed like, that is a situation that you don't want to see your team tag on both sides of the kill feed.
Yeah, typically your team tag being on both sides of that little marker, and the indicator in the middle is usually indicative of a major problem. So they are going to lose 2 players. I thought it said somebody exploded too. There was 3 that went down, but they do still have 3 players up, so it must have been one guy from another team. But Nerve is going to be down to only 3 players remaining already.
Yeah, there are a few ways that
It's a
could
rough
have
way to
gone
start.
down. Maybe they actually did see another team. Another team, even if they do take out a few of those players, aren't going to want to pursue the engagement. Maybe inside of that engagement, something does happen. Explosion goes a little bit astray, ends up clipping a team member. You tag up your own buddy who's already been tagged up as well, end up taking him down. That's going to be really rough for Nerve, definitely on the back foot here. This is a numbers game. One of the big ways we talk about how a team is ahead is based off of their numbers in that late portion of the game.
It looks like they actually eliminated 1 player, and somebody else it just looked like Nerve everything. There must have been 1 person that caused, there's NRV and an ERV. So, I'm not quite sure what happened.
Hey, that's your job, man. Figure it out. Let's do it.
We'll have to figure it out in a minute.
Time for
here,
the quick maths.
But we are down. It looks like NRV is going to be down 1 player, and Nerve is going to be down a couple.
Yeah, so one of the big things right now is we are still inside of that loot phase, so we don't expect too many more of those deaths. That was somewhat of a fluky scenario that did go down. We'll see a little bit more information on it when we actually do jump on with the squads, and we can actually see how many players are up from each of the teams. But right now, the remaining players from Nerve still with each other, trying to pick up some vehicles, and yeah, you can see only 2 players from Nerve are left standing.
Yeah, so one of them lost 3, and it looks like the other one. The one team lost 3. The other one looks like they have their full team up. And I think that we
have 57 players.
I spaced out. We actually have 2 Nerve teams. They have a white team and a blue team, and they both ended up in Group A qualifiers. So that's what actually happened.
Yeah, so Nerve W is Nerve White.
Yeah, so Nerve fought Nerve is what happened. We didn't catch the fight, but one of their teams eliminated the other team. And it looks like we're getting an airdrop here pretty early. Doug from team Set to Destroy X here, getting in there. We'll see if he ends up pulling a hunting rifle. He is going back and forth, so he's grabbing those body armors. It's really not conducive to carry multiples on you of the body armor since they take up almost half your inventory. So he's just kind of feeding them into the vehicle, getting everything in there. We do hear the bombs coming over, so he's going to need to be aware and get out of there if he can. It looks like he's going to sit through it, and yeah, he just no respect to the bomb plane whatsoever, and luckily enough, it's gonna miss him. So he's gonna be able to survive that one, sit in the smoke, and go ahead and grab those.
We've seen people go down to those before, but solid read coming in there, and now going all of that loot as well. And you can see really good placement there of the smoke. Gets to hide out, has the vehicle, can throw some of that inside of the trunk, bring it back to wherever the rest of his team is. We can see that Gangstars is really far off here. How is this going to affect them when they actually do rotate over to the safe zone?
Everybody's going to be rotating late, so Gangstars, Rogue, Cohesion, Mocket, Myth, all of them are going to have to try and play outer edge strategies most likely. Everybody else is kind of already set up in the center of the safe zone, so those super prime real estate for this first safe zone, they're gone. They're not available anymore. A lot of these teams decided to go ahead and rotate early. However, these other teams may end up with more loot. They're going to be able to loot up a little bit longer before having to rotate. So they'll have...
So one of the big things that we'll talk about is definitely the idea of loot versus real estate, but we did just get word that there was a slight issue within the game, so we are going to have to restart this one. Okay. It is still early enough to restart, so we're going to wait for that to go down, but we see a whole bunch of information coming out from these teams early on when they are inside of that looting phase. One of the things I wanted to point out, though, is Set to Destroy X. You talked about this team potentially being one of the breakout teams. Really good real estate there. Now you're talking about the other teams that are a little bit further off and they're getting more loot. How does a team that does better in the looting phase beat a team that obviously has good gun strength when they have the upper hand as far as real estate goes?
It becomes a matter of, did they get enough loot before they got that real estate? Do they have enough to actually take a fight? In fives, it's harder to kind of step out and take a fight because the rest of that team is gonna, if comms are working well, one guy is going to get hit by multiple players. So peeking is dangerous enough against a single one of these guys that can quickly two-tap you and take you out. Stepping out into a spot where you're going to get blasted away by a full team is a little bit harder. So you have to... Fights last a little bit longer typically. So if you don't have the resources to make it through that, prime real estate doesn't do you any good if you don't have enough. However, with 60 players, there's more loot to go around than there typically is in a solo event. or in a normal match where there's 150. So typically these guys are going to have enough before they get to the prime real estate. They're not going to rotate if they don't have enough. They want to feel comfortable.
But when you talk about resources, one of the big things that we saw, even in those early parts of that game, were teams trying to take away from the other team's resources. We saw the only shots that we actually caught with our spectators that we were actually driving with, that we were watching, were shots going into a vehicle. And that's something that is really important. If you do see the other team, you don't necessarily want to take that fight. It doesn't make sense to be hyper-aggressive. It's a little bit greedy to try to take the fight. A lot of the times it's going to be, if you look at the percentages, it's not going to be something that's in your favor. And a lot of the times it's going to be something that errs on the side of a 50-50. Even if you do have the advantage, the odds just aren't good enough to take the fight. But if you can guarantee that you can pop some shots into a car, take that vehicle away in the late game, it can be massive.
Yeah, and vehicles is a big thing here as well. Typically we see more cars driving around in a solo event because it's one person per vehicle. Now you've got a team grabbing vehicle, so you'll see fleets of cars driving by or fleets of ATVs. ATVs get used a lot more in fives than they do in solos, also because they'll use them as scout vehicles in a sense. Somebody will go out and just kind of do quick hops. You can easily park that behind a rock. You can kind of get into cover a little bit quicker, though your body is more exposed. Some teams do like to use them as scout vehicles, so vehicles do have a little bit more play in fives.
One of the things that we see all the time with fives, you talk about teams getting that little area and making it their own. A lot of times you see that fleet of cars get parked there. You see it get stockpiled there. You see a lot of loot stockpiled in that area. Sometimes when they are taking those really long range engagements as well, sometimes they're going for those rifling plays. Dropping off their body armor, for example, leaving it in the trunk of the car, different things like that, because they want to take everything that they have. They don't want to use it in just that fire back and forth. So to try to preserve their resources. So those camps are a really big thing as well.
Yeah, definitely. Being able to set them up and be able to protect your vehicles is huge. But then also, again, so we talk about vehicles being big. It's in that early to mid game. Once you get into the finals, the final phase of that, really cars aren't conducive to good play other than if you have a really good vehicle and maybe it's those final two teams fighting and you can kind of use to get a quick guy out to a flank position and use the car and get a wide angle if there's not available cover. You can kind of do things like that, but it's not good late game. Typically your cars are eaten up enough to get into a vehicle late game. 5 guys are going to be able to shoot your car. It's close enough that they're not going to miss and your car's going to get ripped apart really quick.
Well, that's the big thing, right? Because you have all these players it's one of those things with the meta changing and evolving. Players know to shoot vehicles. That means the vehicles are going to deteriorate. Also with the changes right now to fuel, that means it's going to be taxed inherently by the game. So when you do get into the late game, it's going to be that much more difficult to preserve a vehicle. But you also have players popping shots in there all the time. That's going to degrade the vehicle so much that when you get into the late game, a lot of the time they are going to just be able to blow that car up.
Yeah, typically none of the cars really make it to the late game in fives. Every now and then you have one team that may have a vehicle left over, but cars get eaten through so much quicker in fives than they do in solos. Teams as a whole, when you spot a car and you're typically like the one guy and you got to sit there and kind of shoot at it and shoot at it and shoot at it and slowly eat away at the vehicle. Now it's like, hey guys, there's a car over there. 5 guys step up and less than half a clip from all 5 of them. If they all hit, the car is gone. So it's gone in seconds. You can just absolutely rip through cars.
Yeah, one of the last plays I can really think of in teams. It's been a while since we've got to cast teams, by the way.
Atlanta.
It was Atlanta for the first stop of the H1Z1 Elite Series. Now we're getting to do it here in Sweden, but you think about cars and you see a lot of players in those final engagements maybe stepping into a car when the rest of their team died, trying to avoid some of the fighting that is going on, sitting in the back seat. Different
we've had
things like that.
Flame Hopper, I think we just call it the Flame Hopper play at this point because he makes use of it. He has no problem doing that. Check your cars late game, guys. They sometimes get used because you're not expecting. Typically, you want in late game, you don't want to get into a vehicle and get ripped apart. So you know what the lay of the land is at the end game. So most of the time, you will leave your car behind even if you do have one that's in okay condition. You're not going to typically run with that vehicle. You're going to go ahead and go on foot where you can immediately fight back if engaged.
Yeah, exactly. It is always exciting, though, when you do see a player in a vehicle in the late game. It doesn't have that much health to work with, and it's just right in between that crossfire. No one knows who's there. If one team falls down, that's going to skyrocket the player and his entire team that's already fell up a position higher in the finals. It's really exciting to get to see things like that happen, and that goes back to what you said. Yeah, you gotta check those vehicles.
Yeah, you got to check those vehicles, and that's the thing, is that you are playing for your team. We heard Flamehopper talk about it a little bit. Puts a little bit more stress on him, but you are there to perform not as an individual. You are a unit. You are a team. The last one left alive, you are still that team. You are the representative. So it is about getting that placement, and placement here can be a huge jump. The team side and what the dollar amounts are is pretty big. So
yeah, well, the main thing is before they even get there,
too.
before they even get there to compete for the money, they need to make sure that they qualify for Sunday. So getting that top 3 placement above all else is key. You know, we're not worrying about bounties until tomorrow. Bounties will take effect there, and if you haven't watched before, basically the way bounties work is it's going to incentivize players to get kills. Those kills are all going to be worth money. Sometimes we see players slay out more, get a little bit more aggressive. Sometimes we just see players go, hey, I'm going to go for the big chunk of change that sits behind that first place trophy, try to get that, and you know what, if I pick up a bunch of kills up on the way, I'll be rewarded as well. But that's not going to take effect until tomorrow when we actually do get to the finals. Tomorrow's going to be absolutely insane. We're going to crown our champions for solos, and we're going to crown our champion for teams. Really excited for that. Obviously today we are going to be figuring out who is competing on the team side. We've already figured out our top players from solos. We know the 60 players that are going to be playing in that final.
Yeah, and the thing that changes here also is that really in terms of number of players going from qualifiers to finals is lower here. We have 5 pre-qualified teams, which means there's 25 spots, which means that there's 5 more players out of these groups that don't make it. That's why we have that 7th slot that picks up 5 players. If it was the same breakdown as solo stages, we would have 5 more players advancing into finals. So there's less people that are going to make it today than did yesterday to Sunday.
Yep. Yeah. Man, the theme of today really has been math. You're doing a great job with all these maths.
Quick maths.
Doing a great job. So we talk about how players are going to qualify. We've talked about what they're playing for, and we started to talk about the differences between solos and between teams. Now, as we're about to jump back into this game, we should just put the microscope on team play in general and how some of these strategies are going to play out. We saw the beginning of that loot phase. You talk about, with the fact that not as many players are going to be going on, that also means that there is more loot on the map, essentially.
Yeah.
So what is the loadout going to look like? We already said some players are going to specialize. They might go for something like the E-tips. We might see certain players. We talked about Triv potentially doing some weird things when we actually do see Triv play different things like teams. Yep. He's actually grabbing SMGs and just harassing other teams, getting in that war of attrition that we like to talk about a lot. Are there any other roles that we kind of see with loadouts?
So loadouts change a little bit too. You'll see more guys kind of going for a double long range. You'll see a few more do that, and you're more comfortable going shotgun, AR, shotgun, AR, AK, and then dropping one to a throwable if you need to, just because longer range engagements than what happens in solos.
Yeah.
Teams are engaging from further distances than they do in solo. So the fights go on a little bit longer, and they need that extra weapon to be able to. Sometimes you get something really low, or a car drives by, spray the AR, swap to the second one, continue the spray if they're driving through the open, which is why cars get damaged. Now you've got 10 guys with two long-range weapons. Now you've just got a ton of damage going into vehicles. So you'll see a bit more of that, where you had to have that trifecta that we talked about yesterday, your close-range quarters, your long-range, and your throwable. It's
funny, though, that when you talk about how the throwables actually used, that was a big talking point at TwitchCon for something that changed in solos. Basically, the idea that players were using that throwable in that third slot instead of holding a weapon and actually dropping it, then switching to the throwable, picking the weapon back up. But in teams, we might still see that older strategy.
Yeah, it definitely plays out different there. So the speed up of being able to throw throwables quicker, less delay in between each throwable, really changed that, where the throwable slot became really, really strong. And especially with the smoke change, all of these guys will have smokes on them. So I talked about it where sometimes you have a team that will use somebody that's their E-tip guy or their grenadier that's throwing out their grenades. All of them still have a throwable or two, but you just typically load one guy up with a little bit more than you do the rest of the team. Everybody will have smokes. They will evenly distribute smokes across so that they can either smoke themselves or be there to help a teammate out of a pinch. So that's one of the things that will change, and they'll hot swap smokes in. but you will see a few teams that are running those
smokes.
longer-range
Smokes are just one of the most important things in H1. I feel
if
very
you don't have
safe
if you
saying
don't
that.
have smokes and you can't stack them, you're not making it late game. If
Yeah,
you can't
exactly.
smoke off, you are going to die, especially if it ends in open field battles and things like that. You need to have smoke nades on you.
There were so many points when we actually did get to the late game in solos, and you would see every single player inside of a smoke that they threw down, just waiting for someone to pop out, just waiting to. It's so huge as a defensive play, especially with the change. We talk about changes, so just in case people haven't gotten a chance to watch since the last time we were at the H1Z1 Elite Series over in Atlanta, this is the first time that they're getting to watch a tournament again. What are the changes that we have actually seen to smokes since then?
So smokes, you used to be able to somewhat see through them. That had some issues where you can kind of see through the smoke and you can still locate somebody inside of it. Now it's much more like a CS smoke. It is just like, it is thick. You cannot see anything through that. You can barely see yourself inside of the smokes, which has really opened them up to be utilized for more than just a defensive. So you can use them somewhat offensively if you've decided that you want to take a fight. Maybe you're in a pinch, so it's still it's like an aggressive defensive play, right? So if you're pinching me from one side and I decide to throw a smoke down because I think the better fight's on my right with the other team, I can throw it down, kind of keep you off of me while I aggressively push the other side. You can also use it just as blanket cover. Maybe you're not even getting shot at, but you throw enough smokes out and they can't see you, and you can rotate or not even rotate. You can start playing mind games with smokes. You can throw it and make them think that you're leaving, and then just stand there, and they're looking somewhere else, and then when the smoke clears, you can unload into them. So there's a lot of options that smokes give you, so not having smokes is really rough. Having smoke nades opens up a ton of opportunities for you.
Yeah, so we talk about changes like that. One of the other changes is actually, and this isn't as flashy, we actually do have for the players right now a new combat zone where they can be warming up. They're doing that right now. We're going to give them a few seconds to get ready. We're going to jump to a quick break, but when we return, we are going to kick off team play. We're going to figure out the top teams that are going to be going to Sunday.
Make it. Anywhere you look at it, this shit is amazing. Homeboy, understand. I ain't mad at you. There's just very few things in life I know how to do, and this is one of them right here. And whatever comes up, comes out. We don't put our hands on our mouth. I stand for what I'm about. Unknown, but I'm still a soldier. Can't let them go home till I win them over. My youth was training, it's very clear. Every year, new city, new rules to play with. True shit. New kid in school, didn't rule nothing. To this day, I rap like I'm trying to prove something. Little bit aggressive when I spit a sentence. Till you get the message. You couldn't pay me to quit professing. Rock 61 sold out shows, came home and caught a bus to the 62nd. Shirt sweated full of work ethic. Been in love with the shit since I first met it. Rhyme sayers is the first to come, last to leave. Ain't no tricks up our sleeve, this is what we believe. We like doctors, don't get it mistaken. We carve life out when we sit in the basement. We self-taught, it's as real as you make it. Any way you look at it, this shit is amazing. Doctors, don't get it mistaken. We carve life out when we sit in the basement. We self-taught, it's as real as you make it. Any way you look at it, this shit is amazing.
We are back. The players are ready. I'm ready. Superstar, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. So we are going to be jumping into team play here. 2 games are going to play out. This is the first one for Group A. Then we'll jump over to Group B, do another 2. That's what we're going to cover today. Then Sunday, we're going to dive in and actually figure out who the champions are for both teams and solos. And as you can see on your screen right now, the players having their last words with each other before they start this first game of the day. My name is Rich Campbell, and to cast all the action, I have the one, the only Supersonic with me.
That is me. You are correct, sir.
Yeah, and there's only
You're
one
stuck
of you,
with
too. That's what I said. That's one math I can figure out.
No.
You're 1 in a million, sir.
Well, I do have numbers in my name, so.
Yeah, that's really elite.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
3 and a 1. 3 and a 1. That's part of the league.
So
I lost
we
7.
already talked about strategy. We talked about some of the teams that are going to be playing. Now it's just time to see what happens. I think the biggest question in my mind is where the ring actually does settle. We already saw in that first game that had to be remade. It was up towards the north.
We saw how quickly teams rotated to take center safe zone.
Set to destroy
much
X,
sooner than solos.
Instantly center.
Much quicker than solos.
And we were talking about some of the teams that did have the track. They had that pilgrimage that they had to go on into the safe zone with the other teams being set up. Could have been really difficult for them to actually find footing. Now, with the different safe zones, we talk about the different types that we can see. That northern safe zone, what type of finish can we actually expect there?
There's a couple different options. I mean, we had Fairgrounds still within play. We could have had it pull towards the south. There's a lot of different things that could have gone. As you can see on the map, there's either dead space or we could have ended up in forested city areas too. So
I almost feel like it's going to pull that way again after seeing this break. Now we are jumping in here with Team Qualifier A. This is match number 1. We are going to have 2. The scores are going to be cumulative. You can see all the names on your screen right now of the teams that are playing with these teams. Going to drop down together with nothing on their back and start this initial looting phase. Can see really even spread here. Don't expect any of those sort of fluky deaths that we saw the initial time, but we do see Set to Destroy X is kind of close to SOA and also potentially Mocket depending on which way they move, and MP going to be the first player that we jump on here from Mocket.
Yeah, going to be able to get a car here early, be able to grab that loot out of there that they need, and that'll be a quick, good pickup for them. We did see Set to Destroy there on that spread on the map. We saw them kind of going each to individualize smaller POIs as well. They didn't really have a city. They didn't have a large enough POI that could justify landing full team one spot. So they did go ahead, probably looked around a little bit with their free look camera, make sure there was nobody around, and then made that decision to go ahead and split out, each person take their own little individual POIs.
Yeah, we can see right now, Sir moving all about, and this is similar, right? Really taking that separate POI, everybody getting their loot on separately. About 30 seconds here until we do see that initial safe zone.
Yeah, competitive play is very different in your landing versus normal matches, and unless you're somebody that's played one of these tournament servers or one of the hosted games where it's playing with a little bit lower player cap, it works differently. You can be a little more loose in your initial landing depending on where you started on the map. So sometimes you don't get those quick engagements. Having 60 versus 150 players is a big difference. A lot more loot to go around, a lot more openings there in that early game, which is why the early game plays out a little bit slower than it traditionally does in the normal modes of the game.
Yeah, also, it's going to play out a little bit slower when there is a whole bunch of money on the line as well. You don't want to be taking those greedy fights. And look, it is going to be very north. This time it's going to move slightly more. It's actually a little bit higher north
and a little
than we had, and definitely way more east than we saw last time.
Set to Destroy basically has center safe zone. I don't know that they have enough loot there out of those POIs to hold down, but I also don't expect them to try and make a rotation out of there to go and get loot. I expect STD to probably collapse and pick a spot here pretty quickly. We can also see Rogue up there along the northwest corner of the map. They're getting a bunch of individualized POIs. Nobody's taken Harris. Harris has a ton of loot in it. We'll see if maybe Alliance goes ahead and swings through there to get themselves some loot before they go for center safe
White
zone.
Also has a pretty good opportunity to swing over to Harris Bluffs and try to take that area as well. We'll have to see who does take it, but it's funny to see Set to Destroy X in a similar position that we saw them in that first game. So they pretty much were in that center of the map, but we can see Nerve White moving straight towards that on a collision course with this team, but we're jumping on board with Deacon. This is one of the players that we got to see a lot out of in solos throughout the day yesterday. We'll have to see now, once he is paired up with his team, what he is able to do inside of that police car right now. And also getting very close to that gas station. Want to point out that can be something that is really important if you're going to put a lot of stress on the cars, wanting to move over to that petrol stop, try to grab as much fuel as you can.
Yeah, we see Nerve here. So Nerve's on one side of Set to Destroy right now, and they had SOA that we were just looking at really on the other side. And Set to Destroy is a little spread right now, so they're going ahead and kind of doing the aggressive hold like, hey, this is my area, go away, leave me alone. But if one of these teams decides to engage one of these groups, they're at a huge disadvantage versus another 5-man. So Set to Destroy needs to try and get themselves regrouped and back together here, getting as we transition into this mid-game. Being split in the mid-game is a really bad spot to be. You can do it early, can't do it late.
There are upsides and downsides to everything, right? If we look at what Set to Destroy X is doing right now, the positives of it are, okay, in this phase, you do see a lot of people scouting. If they see a scout, they can instantly inform that scout on the location that they have already held down as a team and say, back off. This is going to be our location. You and your team need to find somewhere else to go. But as you're mentioning, if there is a rotation of a full 5, that gunfight, they are going to be able to pick off players very easily. Even if it's 5v2, there's just a dream scenario for a team. And then they'll also be able to take that favorable map positioning.
Yeah, you can still see Mikey and the other name's covered up right now. I can't tell which. I believe that's Class. It looks like it's probably Charlie. Yeah, so Mikey and Class are over there. They're a little separated. So one of these two groups, most likely Mikey and them, want to transition over to the other 3. The other 3 have a little bit more defensible location, a little bit better spot, closer to the center of the safe zone. Higher potential to not have to move after the next gas ring is announced. So look for them to try and make that rotation over. I don't expect the 3-man to go over to the 2.
Now, there were quite a few teams that we haven't really talked about their positioning yet because, let's be frank, they're very far away of a good place to be. They're very far from the safe zone. That gas is advancing in about 30 seconds. The advantage, though, that they do have as they rotate over, as they go on that pilgrimage, that trek, that as we like to call it, they can grab as much loot as possible, maybe actually make it a more favorable scenario, getting a whole bunch of loot. SOA, Deacon instantly on top of this drop.
Instantly going for it. It looks like he's going to go with no smoke on it. Just going to instantly try and loot it. He's only at 30-30 AR. Even if there's AR in it, he needs that ammo. Gets the one out, throws the body armor into that vehicle. He's going to go for that second one. Gets it. Does not look like there is a hunting rifle. If it is, he hasn't picked it up yet. Typically, you'll grab that really quickly. He's just grabbing and shredding right there. So he is going ahead and grabbing the ammo out of there. He's going to grab that waist pack, shred the tan military backpacks. That's something we haven't talked about either, is that these guys are going to stack a lot more than solo guys do. Stack a ton of makeshift materials. As much as they can, they'll jam and stack them into their vehicles to where they have enough to make 10, 15 makeshifts if needed. So you'll see them going for a lot more stacking of materials. There's a lot more resources to a 5-team than there is to a solo team or a solo player.
Yeah, definitely. And you have quite a lot of hands to pick that up, quite a lot of hands to shred. But STDX now starting to group up, as you did mention.
Yeah, so Mike and them rotated to the other 3.
We're starting to get much closer to that mid-game. So that's when it is dangerous. You're going to have more of the teams rotating together. And Myth right now going to be that squad. They have all 3 of them here up around this ledge. They have a police car of their own. It looks like they have a Jeep there as well. And 3 bodies potentially going to contest this location. It is very early to do that, though.
Those are the type of spots that Myth really likes to play from a lot, too. They usually take a little smaller POIs, or they'll take, they really like to use kind of ridge lines where there's maybe a double ridge line where you can kind of, in that pocket in between, hide your vehicles. It's something that, Crumb and Cryptid are both players that really like those scenarios. So it's something you'll see them make use of a lot if it's an available option.
And doing that right now, but there are neighbors for sure. They are going to be close to several teams in that POI, but we already have seen that it is favorable with the particular ring that we have. Some shots going to come out here from Nerve.
Yeah,
going to scare off this squad without a problem.
I believe that is the Brazilian Crusaders team coming up from South America. That's a long trek, too.
Yeah, I mean,
South America to...
I would assume...
What's longer, Australia or that one? There's a lot of jet lag either way.
The big thing I would think with the South American team, and man, now we're stepping into the area of geography, which is not
Even
my strong
worse than
suit.
math.
Definitely not worse than math, but I would imagine it would be somewhat similar to our flight, except you have to go north-south as well.
Yeah, so now you got even farther. That's a long journey.
Definitely is.
Cool
We
to
already
see
talked
them,
about
cool to
this
see them
tournament.
make it up though.
Yeah,
Brazil's one of those regions, kind of like Australia, where we don't get to see them as often. So seeing them make it all the way out to an event like this, definitely cool. Glad that some of them got to make it out.
We haven't mentioned it at all today, but yesterday we talked about this tournament in particular, this second stop of the H1Z1 Elite Series being a very EU-friendly tournament. And it's the first time that we've seen that because even though there have only been 2 stops to the H1Z1 Elite Series, we also did have TwitchCon in the middle. So this kind of feels like the third for us and probably for the players
and the previous
as well.
TwitchCons as well, which were all obviously West Coast NA.
And TwitchCon used to kind of be one of those centerpieces of the community, right? Now with the H1Z1 Elite Series, it is much more spread out, but this is EU's chance to really shine here. We mentioned it yesterday, but Joaquin Blaze came up to me and he was just like, oh yeah, I just got on my flight today. Like, this is right in my backyard.
Yeah.
NA players, you have to make sure that you get there early enough to make it through airport security and make your flight. I know as well as anyone that can be tricky, and then it's a long flight over as well. But now we are on board with Nerve. This is the Nerve White squad, and it seems like they're getting some pretty decent loot here, and they also have a pretty primo position right in the middle of this safe zone.
Mock it in a very similar position that we saw in that first game that we unfortunately had to restart, but they're going to be coming in and doing a late rotation again. So we do have Nerve White and Nerve Blue actually both really close to the center, really right next to each other. We couldn't end up seeing those two teams have to fight each other. See what ends up happening there. Everybody basically kind of finding those little spots that they can hold, and we're going to start seeing the changes come through with where these teams are rotating to in just a few minutes here, maybe in another minute and a half when the gas closes in, and we'll starting to see what this end circle is most likely going to look like.
One of the other points on the map that hasn't been touched yet that we talked about earlier is going to be Harris Bluffs. That is still open, and we actually do see a team very close to it.
People don't rotate late for those, though.
Yeah, right? I mean, the thing is, though, it's kind of just open. If the ring happens to swing towards there, maybe we see a team, I believe it was Alliance that was out there. Maybe that positioning becomes favorable to them. We will have to see.
You expect a team to have landed there and looted it, so trying to go in late is rough. The other thing is that maybe they landed in this safe zone, isn't pulled towards it, so maybe that team's still there and they're going to do a late rotation. So coming into a city where you could end up throwing yourself into a situation where you're in close range fights and having to do shotgun battles in vehicles, or you come through in a vehicle and the team's already set up and they're in windows and they just rip through your car, most of the time not worth the risk. So a lot of teams won't rotate late to try and loot through a city. It's just not typically worth it.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. If there is already a team set up and then you put yourself in only 50-50 engagements inside of a building on a best case scenario, that can be quite scary. And as we can see right now, they have not moved there. They are at this POI drop, just going to drop this car down the hill, going for the full push.
Yeah, that vehicle is going to continue along the way, and that is a dead vehicle. Car is gone.
That's one way to get rid of a Jeep.
That is a quick way to get rid of a Jeep, and that vehicle is going to be gone, so Rogue is going to lose the Jeep as it tumbles and snowballs down the side of the mountain here. It was trying to get in with the snow. It's trying to, Sweden, cold.
Yeah, just trying to heat things up a little bit. Yeah. Definitely seeing plays out of them right now.
Another vehicle though, so they're okay. But anytime you lose a vehicle, it's a rough spot. You don't ever want to drop a vehicle this early. The more vehicles you can have to kind of rotate in the late game, one gets damaged here, okay, everybody out into the other vehicle. Another one gets damaged, all right, rotate to the next vehicle. You can stay going for a longer period of time. So losing them that early, really rough. And here comes the Knights riding in on their stallions, a full fleet of them going up. So 10K and the boys.
It looks like they all have a vehicle of their very own, and they're probably going to do something that we've seen before, hide those vehicles out in these ridges, keep some of their resources inside of these trunks, and now try to get a line. They probably do see SOA here back on board, though, with Rogue. It's going to be Stormin this time. He is the furthest away from his team, trying to get some information of these other squads. We can see some shots popping out here. Now it's going to be Stormin taking a peek out, letting out a few of his very own, trying to figure out where the other team is. Going to pull out those binoculars now. This is a very far fight for rifling, but these players are crispy with their rifling skills.
Yeah, Stormin with up against Howie and those guys. Definitely somebody that he's very familiar with, having been a teammate of theirs in Z1. So a little bit of brotherly love shots there. They do have 2 cop cars as well, though, so saw those kind of tucked away there. So Rogue does still have quite a few vehicles available to them. They did lose the one, but having 2 cop cars still up and a Jeep to get away, they've got a nice spread. These ridge lines are really useful. You can see all those little nooks and crannies that you can kind of peek in and out of, and you can make a lot of moves where maybe you were on top of the mountain, they're taking shots at you, and Stormy can kind of disappear down into the hill and come out on the other side of it and take shots. You can get angles, and being able to play behind ridges is really big in FIs because of the ability to open up angles. In solos, it's an angles game, but you're typically trying, it's 1 versus 1, it's a straight line. Now I can sit there and kind of rotate around and have your attention with one guy while the other guy rotates wide and gets that angle, pinches you out to where you have no cover anymore.
But also, on top of all of that, totally agree, but on top of that, it looks like they just got gifted this inside of the drop as well. We are going to see that 308. We see 2 body armors. They're going to grab absolutely everything. It looks like it just got straight gifted to Rogue. Falls right into their backyard. They're going to be able to grab that, get out with no contest at all. This is going to make them that much scarier. And with that hunting rifle inside of their hands, with this current positioning, they may be able to just start getting that first blood here. Now the ring has closed.
They're still very close to center safe zone, so I mean that's big for them. They've got the top of the mountain. They got gifted a hunting rifle. They've got the 2 Lammies there. That's a big gift from above right there to be able to have a hunting rifle in their current position where it's still very close to the center of the safe zone. They won't have to rotate again on the next circle either, most likely. They'll probably still be safe, and then if it continues to center upon them where they're at, they're in a very, very strong position for the late game.
It looks like they are one of the teams that has the best positioning, has the best resources moving forward. Definitely going to have to keep our eyes on Rogue. One of the other teams that we want to pay attention to is definitely going to be those Knights. They have taken over these ridges here. They have one of the deepest fleets of cars that we have seen. Look like just about everybody has one.
They need to be worried about that hunting rifle from above, though. They're within that range of that weapon, and the players are up above them with that angle, so these ridges are a little bit lower than the mountaintop. So if Riki decides to rotate over, he's been watching the other side of the hill, but if he decides to rotate down to Storman's side with it, that could be a problem for him.
Definitely could be, and we can see mostly using vehicles for cover here is going to be the Knights. SOA also on the other side of them as well, so they're between both SOA and Rogue. SOA, it looks like inside of this church locale, and we've seen some pretty crazy fights go down there in solos this weekend alone.
Yeah, churches are always interesting. There's ways to get onto the roof, play the tops of them, which we saw Triv play this exact one from that roof. Most likely they do have somebody from that team on the roof right now just because of the angles to be able to get a little bit longer vision over some of these hills and ridge lines. Church is a pretty strong spot that you can hold down for a long time. One of the better buildings to utilize.
Market as well. This was one of the first teams that you highlighted. What was it about Market that made you place them so highly here in this tournament before even getting to see what the gas was going to look like, getting to see what the spread was going to look like? Market now outside of the safe zone, kind of rotating around it, rotating around Dragon Lake. What is it about Market that makes you place them so highly?
Just a full team of strong players that have been playing together forever. There's a good team chemistry there. That, and again, I mean, a little caster love for Mountain. Mountain runs the community basically for the EU side. So he's been running Revenge EU and running the competitive scene over there, while CA and TA and everything's been going on the NA side. And then we've got the Brazil teams, but Mountain's that like figurehead for the EU guys. So gotta show him love.
So if I was playing right now, you'd be cheering for me.
You versus Mountain? I don't know if you win that one. I think at that point I'm a betting man, and I'm just going to take the one that's going to win that fight.
So with Market right now, with this outside location here, what do they have to do to actually collapse in and be able to beat some of these teams that have
They're going to late
areas?
rotate. They're going to late rotate. They're rotating north. They've got the open water lines there. They're going to be able to gather some information of where the other teams are. They might end up causing a problem for Rogue if they rotate around to the west side of the lake. That's currently within the safe zone still. They have a little bit of gap there off the north side of the water, and they could rotate down from the north side. So Sweet, actually the one that's been gifted that hunting rifle, Riki brought it over for him. He's going to need to be able to pay attention to that north side and make sure that he doesn't get rotated on by Market. That that could be an issue for Rogue, where they didn't have anybody to their north side. They didn't have to worry about that at all. Everybody was to either their south or to the southeast previously. Now they're in a situation where if that team rotates in, they could be in a pinch situation because they are that center safe zone. When you're dead center safe zone and you have a building, you're much safer about being able to make it into that late game than you are when having to hold a mountain or ridge line. You're a little more open to getting pushed by multiple teams. It's harder to multi-team push a building than it is to push up a mountain.
One of the things that we heard as well was some of that chatter of gunfire, and that is because we are getting very close to these later portions of the game. We haven't seen any deaths come out yet. But when we do, it is going to go off all at once. Everybody will smell the blood in the water. Teams will try to come in for pinches. Teams will try to take loot away from teams that they can fell, and they will try to take areas of interest as well. We are getting close to it as this gas does advance here in just 15 seconds.
Yeah, it goes from zero to real quick. Or from 0 to 100 real quick. It's math, there's numbers, dude. It gets me every time. But it literally goes from 0 to 100. Solos, you get those little random kills here and there every now and then. In 5s, you sometimes get a team engagement early where somebody landed close to each other or somebody drives a car past an area to scout and they get ripped out of a vehicle. You don't typically see the combat really till the end, and then it's just multi-team battles and how well can I hold my composure while fighting off multiple teams, because almost always you're in a multi-team fight until the end. There's very rare moments, the way that these play out, where a team is engaging a single team at one point in time.
Exactly. Usually what you see is it is that one lone player who's ripped out. It's that one lone player who's cut down, but the tension here is starting to get insane as we do have this ring closing. The players getting so close to each other. We can already see the effect of Dragon Lake. The big thing that's going to happen here is that that's just going to take out so much playable area, and now the players going to be so close. They are all sitting right in each other's backyards. It is going to be very soon that we see this first gunfight break out. We see the first team go home, and look at how tight this is going to be. This is going to force so many teams to try to get in here. Rogue still with the supreme positioning, set to destroy X and Myth right on top of each other. Nerve starting to move in a little bit closer. That's going to put them close to SOA. SOA going to have to see Alliance when they make their way in. We are getting so close.
Yeah, Mocket also, as we were talking about, has made that rotation around. They actually went farther west than I thought they were going to go, so they're going to be able to come up over the top of the mountain. There's a really high mountain peak behind Rogue, to where that could cause a problem for them where they're currently at. If somebody does make it to the top of those twin peaks there behind them, it could spell disaster for them, especially with players like Mocket that can hit those long-range AR shots. However, that hunting rifle may come into play and be able to kind of fend them off. You step up and you don't know that they have the hunting rifle, and that guy throws a shot back and he rips one guy off. Team is a little less likely to push you at that point, so we'll have to see how that engagement opens up if it does happen. But Mocket is basically in the open on that side right now. Nobody around them. They're most likely going to rotate straight towards the center of the circle as it starts to close in these next zones, and they will end up coming up on that back side of Rogue.
And that is a big deal. I mean, if you can rip them off with the 308, send one player packing, you are going to, if they feel forced to take that fight, they're going in with a man disadvantage.
It takes the wind out of your sails immediately. Losing a player and being one of the teams to lose one early, it really, really hurts. And your odds, as soon as you lose a player, your odds of winning the match drastically changes and drops down. Because having 5 up in the late game when there's only 3 to 4 teams left is really, really big, because the majority of teams are going to be down 2 players, down 3 players maybe. Maybe there's a solo guy left. There's a lot of those things that play out. So having players alive is really, really big. So keeping all 5 up is something you want to do. Doug there, going to get his helmet ripped as he sat there and ate away at one of the vehicles. Loses a helmet for it. Luckily still alive. That could have been a quick 2 shots. That guy's shot was on point.
Yeah, just like that, if you get 2 tapped, set to destroy X in very good locations still. We talked about this location being prime in the very early rings in these safe zones later in the game. This is going to be first blood coming in here.
It's going to be Cohesion onto Gangstar's. Flitch from Gangstar's getting taken out there by Simplicity. We actually have 2 swap outs on the Cohesion roster, too, that we didn't touch on. So we have P90 Princess and Pixie Sticks filling in on the Cohesion roster as well this match. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. Another team that's got lineup change where there may not be the same level of team chemistry that these other 10 teams have in this match.
Synergy or not, though, they are going to be able to pick up first blood. Let's see if they can keep this momentum going. Now it is Rogue in the top left of your screen as Myth starts to run straight into them. This collision course could spell an early defeat for Myth. They still do have those ledges between them, and it looks like they have seen the danger and are trying to move out as quickly as possible, putting more and more space between them and Rogue. They don't want to be the next ones inside of the kill feed. Cohesion, though, has another opportunity here to pick up a kill. They have an entire squad from Brazil into their crosshairs. We're going to see that explosion go out. It doesn't connect. But just like that, we do have a gunfight going on.
Yeah, so Concept here, taking a couple shots out there. We also saw the other team rotating away, almost driving right back into Energy, though. So Myth might end up in a pinch situation there, but we are on board with Cohesion as they are keeping their attention on both sides here. They have Gangstars on one side. They have the Brazilian Crusaders on the other. Brazilian Crusaders, it looked like they may have lost that vehicle. Cohesion may have put enough damage into the car to kind of eliminate that from them. Brazil doesn't appear to be trying to make a move anymore. They have stopped, so I think they lost their vehicle. That might have been what that explosion was before the smoke nade came out.
Now Cohesion moves out of this wooded area. We see the entire team jump inside of that vehicle. Maybe getting scared of the potential for a pinch with that positioning, as we already did mention.
Scary.
But they
Five guys
start
in
to
one
move
car is
back in.
scary.
Yeah, they do start to move back in. One of the things you can do is actually get closer for a fight. Now they are going to have that Brazilian team in their crosshair again. We're going to see this next ring. There is not enough room for all of these teams there. Only one player has gone down so far. By the time these players get into this ring, within 2 minutes, we are going to see heads roll.
Center safe zone right now. I'm not sure if we can maybe get the map back for a second here, but the Knights have center safe zone currently, and it's not, we've seen it for a little while. They haven't moved much. There's not a lot open there. So as teams come in, you don't have cover on all sides. So center safe zone right now for this particular circle, I don't know if it's the best. I still really like the spot where Rogue is at. The teams up north here will most likely end up engaging. Interv Blue may end up running into these guys as they come up. They have a lot of space to get information on over half of the teams, which are all down to their south and to their southeast. So that's one of the better spots to make a late rotation. So that's something we saw a lot in Atlanta, is that we saw a team do that team that was kind of center most of the game, but then got to do the late rotation in the final circle while the other teams fought out and just mop up, ended up being huge. So the last time in Elite Series, that was a big play. Rogue is set up in a position to be able to possibly make that play happen.
Rogue definitely, as you're starting to say, needs to keep their eyes, though, on those teams that are rotating a little bit late towards their area. They do have some powerful weaponry to deal with it, though. Now it is Myth stuck in this engagement here. Jumping inside of their vehicles are going to be Crumb, and just trying to get somewhat away from this fight.
Yeah, so they're in a similar situation to what I think may happen with the Knights, is that as these teams start to rotate towards center safe zone and Nerve and some of these teams come in, they're in a spot where you've got open field around you. There's not a lot of trees, there's not a lot of other cover right around you that could cause some problems. If more than one team engages you, you don't really have hard cover from one or the other. You're gonna have to pick a fight one side or the other. Drop, gonna find the second kill of the game onto one of the players from BRC and the third. So Brazilian Crusaders getting picked off right now. They're losing players left and right to both Rogue and Cohesion.
Yeah, they are in a dangerous situation at this point. We can see the 3 remaining players inside of the smoke, and you can see bullets flying in blindly, and they are clustered around the trees because that is where you would assume these players are. And now, Sick is just in a position where he just needs to be sneezed on, and he will collapse. Alliance inside of an engagement as well. We are going to see another Brazilian player go down. Only 56 players remain. 2 Brazilian players going to be up at this point. Inside of the smokes now is going to be Alliance. We can see that they are in this gunfight with Mocket.
So we do see Colj there, or Colgis, who was playing yesterday in solos, performed extremely well. We got to talk to him a little bit yesterday, and they're in a rough spot currently. And now we see Mocket with a late rotation. Mocket actually came south out of those mountains, which is opening that up a little bit, unless there's another team that maybe fit in. BRC gonna lose the last 2 players. I believe that is the first team eliminated. It's gonna be down to 11 teams. But Mocket coming down may have opened up that backside behind Rogue. They may not have that immediate threat from the west side there. That could be big for them, but we are seeing all these teams start to rotate in. You can see how little rough, sporadic cover they're running without. You've only really got like a ridge line, and the Knights are just over the other side, so the teams are starting to close in, but STD has come in and pressed. So we have Cohesion on one side of Rogue, we have STDX on the other side. Pixie is going to choke out to the gas from Cohesion, though, as they're forced up into the high side of the ridge line. Coming down into the open is a really rough spot, but Rogue is taking a ton of damage right now from Set to Destroy, and T-Hum trying to get healed up here, down to 3%, gets one bandage off to slightly stabilize, needs to get another off, gets that med kit. But this press on Rogue is a rough spot. This is what I was talking about. If somebody can get up and press the one side of them, this ridgeline becomes a death trap.
Rogue was in one of the best positions throughout the entire game. They are going to be able to hang on just a little bit longer. STDX decides to quell their aggression for now, peeling off just a little bit, but this could put them into the clutches of SOA. Rogue trying to recover. T-Hum taking more damage here. He is one shot on that body armor, only 36 health remaining at this point. This time it's going to be Cohesion. Cohesion down, though, to only 3 players at this point. We saw them choking out to the gas. They were looking for a foot to stand on. Explosion going to come in here. Sweet Dreams barely holding on. The first to drop, though, is going to be Cohesion, but just like that, Sweet Dreams and T-Hum going to fall to Simplicity. Riki trying to clean this up, but he's not able to get these kills. Cohesion may be able to come out on top. Riki's going to go down.
Yeah, Riki's going to go down as well, so immediately this spot became a complete death trap as the 2 teams press. It's really hard. You have to press the one team off. You have to take an early engagement and not allow a team to push up on both sides. What probably happened there is, as Set to Destroy made a quick rotation late with the vehicles out of their initial spot, they probably just blasted in and came up blindside on that side of the mountain, which caused disaster for Rogue.
For Cohesion, we do have P90 Princess. She was hiding inside of that smoke. It appears that she still is up for now, but also hiding inside of the smoke is going to be both SOA and Mocket still engaged in this combat. We are going to lose even more players here as the gas begins to advance right now. We can see the Knights, their location is completely known, and they are in prime real estate to get pinched, but a grenade going to take down 2 players here, both Deacon and Devontae, who we saw in solos earlier yesterday.
The press from Knights as they come rotating in with the car and hop out into these smokes. Jerk gonna find a grenade kill onto Zilly, and we see Mountain on fire running into this smoke nade, trying to get a little bit of healing. Right inside is the Knights, though. Right next to him, we've got Howie and Memo. Both of those guys trying to heal up. Sorry, Wild gonna go down. 10K gonna go down to a grenade from Sync. Another grenade gonna come out and take down Howie. Knights dropping left and right, and we are gonna lose Hinky from Nerve Blue to the gas as Sign and Memo also both drop.
Players just using all of their throwables inside of these smokes, and the kill feed is going insane. Another one gonna send home all of Mocket. These grenades are just deleting players left and right. Only 26 are still up. Now we're down to 25. We can see that Alliance is still one of our teams that is up at 50 Shades, about to fall as well. They're going to lose some players here. Set to Destroy X, though, still with their full force inside of this smoke, and they're looking right at Myth. We just see another throwable go out. Class gonna move back a little bit into this gas. It's slightly into the gas grenade, but he is safe. But another grenade gonna come out. That's gonna take out Mikey. That's going to put them down a little bit, but they still do have the man advantage onto Myth right now. Drop, one of the last remaining players here for Rogue, is in a terrible position trying to hide behind this rock, but if he moves one way or the other, he will be taken out. Cole J going to take down Jerk as well. We only have 21 players. They are split up across 8 teams. Only the top 3 from this group
will go on to Sunday to play for the prize money, to play for the glory, and very soon we will see those top 3 teams. It is getting disgusting here. We will see these smokes traded out here for STDX, trying to hold on to their fragile lives. Myth still right around the corner, letting out some shots, but this time it's not into Set to Destroy X, it's into SOA.
Yeah, they are pinched inside of this smoke. They're going to have to take the fight, and we are going to lose Memento. Stomp a Little is going to go down to Casper, and then we are going to lose Zeeth here and Radix. So we've got only a couple players left up, 2 left on STDX. Drop just hanging out here in this rock. I don't think Gangstars are aware of him at all. And Drop just going to go ahead and let this play out over the top of him. Don't move.
He just wants to let the fight go. This is like what we see when players hide in cars. Gangstars can't see Dropped, but they can see the other team. Drop just needs to stay put. He can't take an entire squad. They don't know that he's there. Set to Destroy X only has 2 players up. If they fall down, Rogue will jump ahead them. There are 6 teams remaining, and Drop is just slowly moving up higher and higher on the leaderboard. It is going to be cumulative. He is carrying his team on his back right now. Alliance going to lose another player. We still do have 6 teams, though. Gangstars right on top of Drop with no idea in the world. They're putting out some shots. Alliance 50 Shades looks like he's about to fall as well, right on top of his other teammate, and just one grenade could fell both of them in no time at all.
Kills matter here as well, as it could be a tiebreaker situation or bump you above another team. Interview Blue, though, Sweezy gonna find himself 2 kills, and I believe that is the end for Team Alliance. Set to Destroy now stepping up as they try to take the fight. 2 Gangstars who are fully up, have rotated off. They have no idea that Drop Kid is still there. Drop is still just hanging out, not moving. I expect him to just stay there, most likely continue to roll heals. He's going to get heals rolling early so that as the gas comes in, he's already combating that damage from the gas. So he has heals rolling already.
4th place now.
He
Rogue
is.
has jumped up to 4th place, and Class is about to go down as well. Rogue has moved up to 3rd place.
Drop Kid.
And Gangstars have already rotated off of the rock, and they may take this fight as well. We can easily see Rogue finishing in 2nd place, and maybe even Rogue can come in with a pinch here is going to be Dropped. Gangstars and Nerve White are the 2 teams, though, that have the most amount of players. They are going to be fighting it out, but Drop is found. Rogue going to take 3rd place. Now we have Gangstars fighting against Nerve White for that top position, trying to move on to day number 3 of DreamHack winner.
Yeah, that was crazy. He ends up taking down 3rd, but we are down to just 2 teams remaining. What looks like we have a 4v3. Nerve White, I believe, is ahead in this, and they are going to start taking this fight to the Gangstars. Gangstars trying to just hold cover as long as they can, waiting for Nerve to rotate to them into the open. They want to have the ridgeline. Naskell gonna lose a helmet, gets a new one on, starts taking some shots at Feral. Casper is gonna drop, though, to Feral. Now, in the smoke nade, Naskell trying to heal up. He's gonna go ahead and lay down. Nerve on an aggressive push. They know that they're up in men, but Naskell might come out behind him. They spot him in the smoke, trying to come out with the shotgun to get a kill. Flashbang comes out. He is going to drop, and it is 5 up for Nerve White as they take down game number 1 of the qualifiers.
Absolutely beautiful finish going to come out there for both of those teams. Well earned and well played. But, you know, one more time, just looking for Dry. I can't even find him in real life after he's hiding behind that rock. Going to skyrocket Rogue to 3rd place. Our top 3 teams are solidified here in the first game, but we do have one more, and it's going to be cumulative. But those are going to be our top dogs. Only 3 are going to move on.
Yeah, that's huge from Drop to be able to hold that spot, finding a nice little cranny there, able to hang out. Almost got a smoke nade assist there to just kind of help him out a little bit from Gangstars, but hangs out and just waits it out. So ends up taking down 3rd place for his team. That's really big. I'm sure the guys love him for that. That's a Flame Hopper-esque style play there.
For sure.
But ends up going up. I mean, how many spots did they jump? How many placements did they go up? It's almost 5 or 6.
I'm pretty sure when he initially was hiding out, we still had 8 teams remaining.
So he bumped
it was
5
in the
spots.
area of that. So jumping up 5 spots, that's huge.
That's
that
him
breathes
hanging
so
out,
much
though.
life
I mean,
in your team.
he had been up for a little bit when we were off camera, so he had to make it to that position as well.
It was not an easy feat to get behind that rock in the first place, but it is huge. It's only 2 games. So having that positioning is going to be
50% basically of what you can do in third place is going to be a lot of points. You talked about kills definitely going to matter. It could be the tiebreaker, but something like third place is just, you can't argue it. It is so crucial.
It is. Your placement, again, we're talking about cumulative points. The point bonuses from going up into those positions are huge. So third place is a big move up. Being able to consistently take a spot like that in a qualifier doesn't happen. So you want to try and hit a mid-pack game, and you want to have a higher placement game to typically average yourself out. So third place is definitely... Obviously, you want to be third or higher. You don't want to end up in that fourth place overall spot where you have to sit, wait through the break, then wait through all of Group B, then wait for them to tally the score to tell you if you made it or not. So it's definitely a good spot to be in.
It does show, though, just how difficult it really is to qualify, because even that remarkable finish might not be enough.
Yeah.
If you can replicate it and get third place again, all of a sudden, okay, you feel
if you can get
pretty
2 third
comfortable.
places,
You're
you're
pretty
probably
comfortable.
top 2 at that point.
You
2
feel
third
pretty
places
comfortable.
big.
Yeah,
you feel really
you
good.
feel really comfortable. But that's the whole thing. Yeah, top 3 again, you pretty much solidify your positioning. If you pull down first place, you feel pretty comfortable. That means there's not much room. You
Right.
basically have your winners taking up 2/3 of the spots with just the way that points are going to fall. So being consistent here definitely going to be key for all of these teams in this team play.
Same thing as yesterday in solos, though, is that it doesn't guarantee you top 3. If first place goes out, because now we're talking about team points. We're not talking about individuals where it kind of averages out easier. The gaps are big. Team gaps are big. So if a team takes third and third, there's a good potential that they could be a first place team if first and second place from game 1 do really poorly in game 2. The way it averages out on team scores is a little different than solos. It's a little bit more aggressive. A little bit more savage of a system.
Let's start to look at the numbers right in front of us right now so we can actually dive into it a little bit deeper. We'll see the standings here after everything is said and done. Of course, on the top of your leaderboard with just a beautiful setup by the entire team is going to be Nerve White. Right behind them is going to be none other than Gangstars, and then Rogue dropped, hiding behind the rock, going to skyrocket them to third place. And with that third place is going to come 112,000 points. So they are very high here. And as you mentioned, Mocket now going to be down with 58,000 points. But that is still a decent amount. You know, if you give them something like a first place, all of a sudden they look like a real contender here. So even though the gap is wide, that first place still is really the key thing always.
Yeah, first place is huge. It almost always sets you up in teams or in solos as a team that's going, or players that's going to qualify.
The numbers are easy enough for me in solos to say it is mathematically impossible to win one of the games in a qualifier, a multi-game qualifier, to win one of them and not qualify.
Right.
You will always make it to that last day with that.
It's almost 100% guaranteed that Nerve White makes it. It's very...
Exactly.
Stars have to align against them for them to not make it. Like, there's a lot of that. We're not even going to try and go down that route.
I'm not even sure if it's mathematically possible or not. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out during a break. But right now, let's look at some of the key moments that went down in this first game. It was just this was such a good way to start off the second day.
So this was definitely a rough spot. We were talking about it. If somebody was able to rotate down from the north onto Rogue, while another team on the left, that's where this ridgeline no longer becomes a great spot. It was a great spot through most of it, but then with a push from STD trying to get into, or STDX trying to get in late into the safe zone, coming up behind them and putting pressure on the back while Cohesion was rotating, it put Rogue in a really, really rough spot here, and we saw a ton of them get lost. They ended up trading out basically with Cohesion, but it ends up leaving Dropkid by himself, having to carry the team up to third place.
Yeah, and we already know as everybody starts to fall off, it is only going to be dropped left remaining, but there were plenty of more plays before we got to that final, before we actually did see those top 3 teams. So let's take a peek at the next one that set everything up here. Oh man, yeah, I remember this one as well, Supersonic.
Yeah, so this one here, we're going to see the nades start coming out all over the place, and we are going to lose all of Mocket as Pipetta comes in, nade after nade, and just absolutely eats up that entire team's out of the smoke nade. So a couple well placed. That's the thing, is that in these late games, I was talking about those center areas, when you're in the open and you're using a smoke nade, it's nice, but there's no solid cover around you. It's really easy to try and figure out, okay, I know exactly where they are. I'm just going to rain nades into this smoke nade, and it's going to eat away your Molotovs or gas. It's easy to negate cover when the only cover they have is a smoke nade, especially in open field. Even if you don't hit them, if you force them out of the smoke, another team's going to pick them off.
Now, the next play that we're going to take a look at is Dropped putting his team on his back, hiding behind this rock.
Working
You can show
hard.
me this. You can show me this 30 times. I know he's not moving, but I want to watch it again and again and again.
I literally thought that Gangstars was going to end up smoking. He was going to be able to just sit there the whole time inside of a smoke. Not sure what ended up happening for the rotation. Late gas probably hit him and probably forced him to have to step up and move and just see if he could make it in. Ends up getting picked off, but able to hang out there forever and bump the team 5-6 positions.
You just see the teams falling off over and over again. But let's pay attention to the guys that did it, managed to get those top 2 positionings.
Yeah, so we had 6 players up, 1 player left in the smoke there. Nastical going to come in, Flashbang going to hit him. He gets 1 hit with that shotgun, but he is going to get finished off. Having 5 players up at the end of these matches is just huge. We talk about it a lot. It's a numbers game. If you have 5 people up going into that final engagement, you're in a really good spot to just crush out the end of the game.
Wait, Lauren, I thought we were doing an interview. I don't see anyone there.
Right? That much of a ninja. How crazy was that? I was in the back and I was just screaming my head off. That was so impressive. Like, congratulations on managing to bump your team up that high in the standings. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
And now I know you guys, the third ring in, you guys had a pretty good spot in the safe zone. You were kind of all right at the top edge of it, and you had a couple of you scouting out, managed to pick off a couple people. When you realized that you were going to have to make some tough rotations there, like what would you guys, like, what was the game plan?
So my whole team died, basically. Pretty much everyone died. And I was just there by myself with, like, I think there was one other guy with me, like one other guy off the other team with me in the smokes. And T-Ump and my teammates told me, get the car and just drive to the safe zone. So I hopped in the Jeep, drove to a rock that was safe, and just smoked myself. And then basically I threw 2 smokes, that's about a minute and a half that I can just stay on that rock. And I ran out, and then I find this little divot that I just prone there, and I just hope to God no one saw me. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened.
Honestly, that was the most entertaining camping that I think we've seen yet. I think we even have a clip that we can go to.
100%. I don't think we ever, camping's always like a funny term to use, but being able to watch you just kind of hang out. The start of this match, too, this clip was great. I think I was doing a little bit of music for you. What was going through your head right there as you're just having to watch the vehicle roll away from you as you chase it? I know that's got to be one of the most aggravating things in the world.
Yeah, like, I kind of messed up because the car, whenever it's flipped over on a mountain, you usually want to flip it from the bottom side of the mountain so it doesn't roll.
Top.
Yeah, I flipped it from the top just because I wasn't thinking of that, and it just kept rolling. Couldn't stop it.
You know what? You made up for it in the end.
Yeah.
So I think they'll forgive you about the Jeep. You guys actually had. I was noticing at the end zone there, and for anybody who's maybe not that knowledgeable on H1, can you kind of touch on, especially in that Harris Ridge ending right there with all those dips and not a lot of tree cover or rocks that you guys can really get behind, how important are throwables in situations like that?
Oh man, like smokes, like especially smokes are huge because when you don't have that cover where you can just hide behind something and not get shot, smokes basically keep you alive in the late game. And like, yeah, and then like grenades, like right now grenades are just insane. Like they 100-0 players, like 100 HP to nothing, just in one nade on top of them.
Yeah, did you see how many frags are coming out in that? Like, people are just
Oh,
dying.
I saw,
left
when
and
I
right.
was playing the game, I saw someone got like a 4-piece or a 5-piece with one
Yeah.
nade. Like, yeah, nades are just insane.
Yeah, Pepetta ended up dropping 2 nades into a smoke and taking out all of Mocket. And how much has that actually impacted play? I know that they're currently looking at it a little bit, but when that change came in that changed the speed at which you could loose your nades, how much has that really affected these in-game circles, especially ones that have no hard cover like you were talking about? I feel like they're much stronger in those situations.
Oh, yes, they are, because especially there's no cover, so you're sitting in smokes. Someone that's outside of a smoke sees a smoke, and they just start throwing nades in there. And they can just throw, like, after that, the nade release, like, they increased it, people just lob them. It's fast, like, dun, 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 just throwing them.
How many throwables are you guys actually like stacking up? Are teams actually carrying. I know that you can never have enough smoke nades. There's never a point you hit enough smoke nades, but it feels like throwables, and I've seen a couple teams do it, start stacking nades and other things, because they did do a weight change when they started making them throw faster. But are you guys still carrying just a ton of those, just loading those up in trunks, just carrying?
Oh, yeah.
If you see a nade, you're making room and picking it up.
Yeah, for sure. So like, right now, nades are more valuable than ammo. That's pretty much because you want to have as many nades as you can. So you'll drop ammo to pick up a nade. And yeah, nades, people put nades in cars because obviously if you have a lot of them, you can't carry that many because they're just so heavy in your backpack. So yeah.
I mean, you guys have managed to put yourselves in a pretty comfortable position now moving forward. What's your plan going into game 2?
We just want to get top 3 both games. That's what we said when we talked about it. We just said top 3 both games and we're in, so that's pretty much what we're going to shoot for.
Well, you've definitely managed to get yourself in a position to do so. So thank you so much for coming up to talk to us, and best of luck in the next game.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That was really awesome getting to see just prone and alone behind that rock, managing to move all the way up to 3rd place. I want to thank all of the sponsors, though, who made it possible for those plays to happen. It just wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Yeah, absolutely. Aces Republic of Gamers coming through, supplying us with 60 high-end rigs, monitors for all the guys to play on. Corsair coming through with those keyboards and mice. We got Meta Threads, who's always been a big support. We can see all of our judges and everybody running around in their nice-looking jerseys. And then I know I'm missing one here. Astro, the
Aces
headsets.
Republic of Gamers, Corsair, and Meta Threads.
Astro was a huge pickup. So that was one that was always an issue. We were having audio. That was something that people really talked about a lot in these tournaments. And at TwitchCon and here, they've shown up with the Astro systems in those mix amps, which really lets the guys get some good volumes in. So that's been a huge change and really made it a lot better quality of life playing for the players. So huge thank yous to them.
A lot of quality of life changes too. You know, just more space in general. Been something that we talked about. And another thing that you might not see, you know, sometimes you get to actually peek at the peripherals that are here. But one of the things that you may not have gotten to see is going to be that combat zone. That is new here. So all the players do actually get an opportunity to warm up. And that means that they're going to be as frosty as possible when they jump in here. And that's actually what they're doing right now. Because although we did see this first game, we saw our top 3 teams. We have not solidified our top 3 from Group A yet. 4 teams. We're going to be jumping into a second game with them in just a little bit here. And in that second game, it will be cumulative with the first game as well. Let's take a look at the teams right now. This is going to be the teams that are facing off again. If you didn't get to watch the last matchup, definitely want to be keeping our eye on our top 3 teams, though, that we did have from game number 1.
Yeah, those 3 are definitely set up really strong going into game 2. If they can have a decent performance in game 2 and solidify that spot, they'll be in a great spot to bump up into Sunday. And then some of these guys are also in a good spot that maybe if their performance isn't great this time, it could still net them 4th place with a possible wild card appearance back into Sunday. So
sketchy though. You can't bank on that 4th. You really cannot bank on that 4th position.
You never want to bank on being the wild card in any sport or any system that uses that. I don't think sitting in a wild card ever feels good. It's definitely a stressful situation, but it's also somewhat of a relief because it's kind of there. It's like we're not 100% out. It's just a really like feel bad middle area there.
But you're relying on others.
Yeah, you're basically rooting against the other team now. It's like you can't root for somebody. You're like, I really want this guy to do awful. Please just.
Yeah, you need 4th place to basically do really bad, right?
You need 4th place in the other group to be a worse 4th place than you.
Yeah, which is difficult to actually do the math on. I mean, we've joked about doing math, but that is tricky because there's a lot of predicting that's going to be going on back and forth to actually try to figure that out as well.
Yeah, and we'll leave that to the people in the back.
Yeah, we'll definitely let them figure that out for sure. But we will be jumping into this game in just a few seconds here. We're going to let the players get everything in order. They are in that combat zone, getting everything ready. They already have 1 game under their belt as well. We're going to make sure that they have full time to get prepared. But when we return, we're going to figure out who these top teams are in just a few seconds here. And we'll figure out the top 3 who are going to advance to tomorrow.
Not I don't want to go
An exceptional product is the one that gets the details right. It is the culmination of features. It is the utility. It is the execution of aesthetic that makes a product truly remarkable. With this, we set out to develop a backpack that not only embodied our philosophy, but would positively impact the lives of those that wore it. For 2 years, we drafted designs, crafted samples, and field tested. Revision after revision, we drew closer. We are now proud to introduce to you the Level 3 Pack. Developed for others like us, the gamers, the creatives, the adventurers, the doers, those that live life without boundary. Designed to deliver exceptional aesthetic and function, the Level 3 is a large capacity, everyday pack. The Level 3 Pack has a clean exterior design, but is packed with amazing features that will complement your lifestyle. There are 2 primary compartments, the mid compartment and the modular compartment. The rear compartment is a discreetly located storage area that has adjustable, padded dividers. This modular compartment allows for storing all types of hardware and personal valuables. Our microfiber lining dividers have a firm base structure with 2mm padding and can easily be rearranged to your liking. Store your power cords, HDMI cables, Ethernet cords, controllers, and accessories all in one place. Whether you find yourself in need for safely storing your PC hardware, peripherals, gaming consoles, accessories, photo, video equipment, or travel essentials, the Level 3 Pack can accommodate your needs. You can rest easy knowing your equipment will be properly organized and protected. This is why we hand-selected tough, eco-friendly, coated denier, and incorporated a rubberized, waterproof base and all-around weather-resistant exterior. The bag is reinforced with 1-inch reclaimed nylon webbing straps that can support up to 3,000 pounds. A large 10.5-inch by 4.5-inch Velcro panel on the face of the bag that allows for patch placement. There is also a secondary Velcro panel on the right shoulder strap. Add your own patch to make your Level 3 Pack unique. An 11.5-inch by 7.5-inch battery compartment and storage pouch. And sufficient space to hold any size external battery, along with the wiring harness that routes to the external USB dock, conveniently located for easy access. Charge any mobile or tablet device while on the move. The mid-compartment features include: the laptop sleeve is padded with microfiber lining and can accommodate up to a 17.3-inch laptop, 2 7-inch by 6-inch video game cartridge sleeves, 2 mesh zipper pockets, and 3 Velcro patches can easily store a multitude of equipment options. The tablet sleeve is 14 inches by 12 inches in dimension and rests between the laptop sleeve and cartridge pockets. A 7-inch microfiber lined waterproof pouch, perfect for storing your sunglasses or small valuables. 2 elastic side pockets that are durable, flexible, and can accommodate storing up to a mid-sized sports bottle. So, when we asked ourselves, what makes a backpack an exceptional one, we found the answer is the Level 3. For everyone at MetaThreads, we want to thank you for your support. Without you, we could not make our dream of the Level 3 possible. With your backing, we will continue to create, innovate, and expand on our line.
Building schools for boys and girls. The thought alone gets me out of my bed. I said, you got the tools, get them shits up out of the shed. Come on.
Pass me a mic and roll down the way. Pass me a mic and roll down the way.
I'm like the Emmitt Smith of rhyming, the Jack Dempsey MC. All my shit customed out, whole afford eventually. Money is made, fly blades. A woman with brains to help a black nigga reign. My lifestyle's a prowler, a rich loner owner. Used to pump in coffee shops, had my bitch Brazil with me rolling up. Fly ass and still classy, asking questions like, why you wear all that glass? Why would you splash me? Yo, it's only nigga shit. I'ma teach you like I was taught to. Hold a full walk through, seeing all kind of great fossils, colossal jewels. Bigger house, act fly, I got you. No need to walk backwards, fuck up the taxes. My street credibility is stronger than NASA's, yeah. Yo, a diplomatic winner, night boots, a Scully good denim jean on, and one renter.
Pass me a mic and roll down the way. Pass me a mic and roll down the red
They say you only live once, I disagree. You only live twice, your life and then through your seed. So I bleed on wax and feed on the deed. So when I die, they got a foundation of my publishing deed. Plus the words that I speak, here's my family jewels. It ain't all blood diamonds, but life experience tools. And I be rhyming cool, but my philosophy's deep. Like a Dear John letter, so read them and weep. And the wolves smell blood, you can feed them the meat. But I'm a like an underworld, we can meet in the street. Draw heat, but what happened to peace? He got a dirty Sanchez, like what happened to Screech. Jesus, diarrheas, I mean holy shit. Christ on a cracker, that's just how we spit communion. Had the wine make the sign of the cross. And I don't live in the past, chalk it up as a loss. Went from please listen to my demo, to stretch limo, to the pen in the cell watching Eminem on Jimmy Kimmel. But I can't go out like Kimbo Slice, like Gina Carano. I'm a cyborg, terminate mano a mano. Still Ronald McDonald, over 1 billion served. But it's up to me to get what I deserve. So I handle my biz and hustle harder than the norm. The early bird gets the worm, but the hawk gets the birds.
Pass me a mic and roll down the red
Where we go?
Pass me a mic and roll down the red
And so, our heroes continued their plight across the desert, unaware of the imminent danger, staring at them through shallow, serpent-like eyes. Suddenly, like a flash of thunder in a still winter's night, little could they have known what horrors they had unveiled.
Cat and mouse. Cat and mouse.
And so, our heroes continued their plight across the desert, unaware of the imminent danger, staring at them through shallow, serpent-like eyes. Suddenly, like a flash of thunder in a still winter's night, little could they have known what horrors they had unveiled.
Cat and mouse. Cat and mouse.
It took one look, but you played me like a game. It took one look, and now you stare at me the same. It took one look, but you played me like a game.
Group A right now. We already saw the first match play out. We're about to see the second. My name is Rich Campbell, and I am joined by Supersonic to cast it all for you. And if you didn't get to watch, we did have the teams play out that first game. We know who came in the top positionings there. We know the top three. Only the top three go to the finals, but it is cumulative with this game. So nothing is final yet. It all comes down to what we actually see in the second game.
Yeah, the second game is going to determine everything. I don't believe so. Obviously, again, math's not our strong point, but we do believe that I don't think there's a way that Nerve White can't make it in. So they should be going. I think they're the only ones that 100% guaranteed to be in that top three position. So we should be seeing them go on. This game's going to determine all of the rest of that card, though. So
the
this
focus,
is a big one.
the focus is really on teams like Rogue, for example. Rogue comes in third place there. The main thing with having a team in third place is if they don't finish perfectly, all of a sudden they're in a rough spot. If they hit third again, they can probably pull down second or first place, to be completely honest.
The same as games, too, though. First place for any of these guys bumps them, too.
Exactly. And that was one of the things you said before we took the break, before we were ready to kick off this second game, was you almost reserve 2/3 of the spots guaranteed a place in the finals to first place winning teams with having two games. Only 2 games determine it for the qualifiers.
Yeah, it's an extreme amount of pressure for these guys to only have two games to qualify. You have to show up and you have to be consistent in 2 matches. This isn't a format that's like an online where you have unlimited time and you can just run match after match after match and run 7-8 games just in qualifiers. This is you need to show up. This is it. Pressure's on. Perform. And it's going to be really rough, and you lose a ton of the field. This isn't the same as yesterday where we're taking 20 teams or 20 players from each qualifier. We're taking 15 from each +5, so we're actually taking less players in teams over than we did in solos from qualifiers to finals. So that's also a little bit of added pressure. There's a 5 less people moving on. So it just continues to raise the stakes. It's high pressure situation, especially in team play, and there's a lot of variables in battle royale style games.
You talk about losing even more here, but when you look at solos, I mean, think about the players that didn't make it from solos. So many great players didn't make it. The same thing's going to happen here. We have the best of the best here in Sweden for DreamHack winner. Not all of them are going to be able to make it all the way to the finals, which we will play out tomorrow. And not everyone's going to be able to win the finals either. We're going to be giving out that prize money. There's quite a lot to play for. But first, we have to get through both Group A and Group B today. Solos has already been taken care of. We did that earlier. We took care of that yesterday. So we do know who all of those players are. But inside of Group A, some serious competition. But then we look at Group B, and it gets kicked up there as well.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about the field. The field here versus what we've seen at previous tournaments where it's been very NA heavy. The field hasn't been as deep. We talk about how extreme of competition that existed in those other tournaments. But here we're taking all the top guys from NA, all those top NA teams make it over. And some of the teams that were still great teams maybe didn't make this trek over, and they're getting filled in by the EU team. So now we have more EU squads, which there's a lot of really top slaying teams in the EU, and it just continues to further how deep the state of this competition goes. It's just a ton of competition here.
And speaking of competition, let's jump straight into the competition. It is time for the final game of Group A, and the first one to jump on board with is Nerve White for us. This is going to be Pulse, and we've already seen what this team can do. Let's see if they can do it again, and a pretty good location for them to be inside of. They can get some of that early fuel. The weaponry also going to be abundant here.
Yeah, actually, I think this is one of the few gas stations that you don't really find much fuel, if any, at. This is similar start, though, that we saw for Set to Destroy last game. This is that same area of the map, so we'll see if they end up splitting and taking individual POIs and kind of doing the same thing they did. Dropkid here, who we obviously saw come in big for his team, being able to make that disciplined play to sit still, which I don't think people understand just how rough it is to sit there and do nothing when you're used to being a Slayer and just having to hope that nothing happens to you. There's a little bit of discipline that goes into that to not move and give away your position. So, but he pulled that off and was able to bump up a few spots and take down third for his team. So that was huge. We'll see if any of those kind of goofy plays come in this second match before we go to the finals on Sunday.
I mean, Rogue seemed like they were in a dominating position for a while there. A few things don't go their way. All of a sudden, some pinches come in, some people rotating in, some flanks going out as well, and you find only one player left. But all you need is one player. If you can have those cheeky plays, all of a sudden, they are in third place right now.
So I was talking a little bit with one of the guys watching the event out in the crowd a little bit during that short intermission that we had, and we were kind of talking about it, and they had a dominant position, but one of the mistakes that happened is that they were playing in a 3-2 split. And this first safe zone is going to be really far off the map, so we're going to lose a ton of space. It's going to be a tight safe zone. This is one of those ones where we lose a lot to the bottom of the map, and we lose a lot to the lake. So this is going to be a little bit tighter safe zone. A lot of teams are going to have to make some long treks. Rogue with a really long distance to go. And going back to that moment we were talking about before, is that having that 3-2 split where you're playing that far away from each other, you can't support each other. So when Set to Destroy came in on them, it put them in a rough spot because they had teams engaged on both sides. They had a 2-man team against one. They had a 3-man team against the other, and while taking combat, have to collapse back to each other. Once you're about 3 to 4 safe zones in, you really can't play that 3-2 split anymore, and Rogue probably should have been closer to Storman's end of that mountain range on the south side to take that fight. So we'll see if any of those kind of plays come in. We do have a mountain ranges and some of these ridge lines here that it's going to be inside this safe zone, then all that dead space out there in the mountains. A lot of the times we see fights going down in the cabins there just north of Runamuck Lake, and then we might see some teams go really high into the mountain range on the south side. The center of the safe zone is basically dead space right now.
Exactly. That was the big question I was going to pose for you, because you were saying a lot of the teams really do want to kind of collapse early as possible for those center positionings inside of the safe zones. But now when we have the safe zone, the center of it is Runamuck Lake. So where will these teams try to get to early?
Now it's a bit of an odd system there. So you have a couple cabins north of the lake. You have some cabins south of the lake. The cabins are set up in clusters down there, so you'll probably see some teams on the north side of that lake. You'll see 1 or 2 teams able to fit in on those cabins there. You can see 2 to 3 teams fit in on the south side. So really there's space for about 5 teams there through that area, maybe 1 more extra team on the south side, but then you've got the high side of the lake, which gives you some advantage starting this. If it pulls to the west, you're in a great spot over here on Green's Overlook. Right along that ridgeline, you can see almost all of the safe zone as long as nobody's behind you, and it opens you up to have those lines of sight. And you have a lot of cover up there as well. So might be a strong spot for this, for a team to consider until we start seeing that safe zone close in and really know where it's going. However, you set yourself up on the wrong side of the lake here where you can't take center safe zone, that first safe zone is going to mess up stuff for a lot more teams who aren't going to land after that first circle rotates away from them.
Yeah, still a little bit of time, though, before we do see the players actually make it over here. We do have one player from SOA getting there nice and early. That is going to be, we're jumping on board with him for a little bit, but these players still have a minute until the gas does advance, and we already saw everyone just so far away from this safe zone. An early gunfight going to be going out here. It is the Knights putting some shots into those rogue vehicles, going to connect as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a couple shots into that car. We're probably not going to see too many hits or anything come out here. But again, just putting shots into vehicles as they go by and eating away at vehicles earlier, if you can get a team, especially a team that has to make such a far journey to the safe zone, if you can get their cars messed up and make them have to walk the whole way, that's big. Taking anything away from another team is always a good thing.
Yeah, you want to take as much away as possible, because if all of a sudden you tax those resources and that's the team that you are put toe-to-toe with at the end, if that's where the chips do fall, you're going to have that upper hand in that late portion of the game. We already saw just how much you can do with one player. Having a resource advantage going to be huge as well. Speaking of a team that can do it with one player, we are on board with Rogue. Inside of the police car, we have 3 of them, and in short distance behind them, the rest of the team inside of a vehicle as well. Looking for a place at this point to call their home, have mostly gotten their loot together. We had a chance to talk to Drop after that first game. One of the big things he said, nades are more valuable than ammo. And we could
100%.
see that. Yeah, we could see that in a big way.
You can aggressively fight off a team pushing you with nades now. I mean, a team pushing in nades, I agree with them. Where we typically saw in teams in Atlanta where the longer range combat was really big and came into a lot of play. Now it's if you get within range of a team, they can just nade spam you off of them. So the nades are definitely much more valuable than we've seen in previous team competition.
We talk about the changes that happen, lob them out way quicker. They are heavier, so you are going to want to be maybe throwing down ammo, maybe actually throwing them into a trunk, whatever you can do. But throwing them straight into smoke is huge. And if you got to watch that last game, when we started to see those deaths coming in, almost all of them done with nades. Just so many teams strictly eliminated with grenades.
Yeah, Pipetta got a quad onto Mocket. I mean, it can abuse an entire team and then eliminate an entire squad in a hurry. Again, we heard him say a grenade can do 100 to 0. A single well-placed nade will drop a player or an entire team.
Yeah, and those grenades definitely going to come into effect when we get to the later portions of the game. Right now, we are still very early into the game. We have these...
How close Mocket and Nerve are with how far you have to go. That's not something very normal to see. Those guys might end up running into each other as they try to rotate. It looks like they're both kind of going over to the gas station there to get some gas.
Yeah, this could be an early fight. This is one of those fluky things that can sometimes happen. We also do see one of the teams getting there really late is going to be our team from Brazil, still inside of Harris Bluffs, moving around that city, trying to get as much loot as they can, maybe being a little bit greedy, assuming that they do have vehicles, but they are going to be racing against that toxic gas at a certain point to make it all the way to the southwest portion of the map around Runamuck Lake into the current safe zone. And we can see inside of that ring, so many teams have started to get that positioning that you were talking about. And you can see there isn't that much support there from the map for a lot of teams. There just isn't room. It already looks full, and teams haven't even made it there yet. I mean, yeah, you have, like you mentioned, we have things just off the map because of where the ring actually falls. So outside of the bounds. Then you have Runamuck Lake taking up so much room. There isn't much valuable cover around Runamuck Lake in particular anyway. Now we are going to see that drop. It doesn't look like anyone has been able to make it over there yet to attempt to take the... It looked like there wasn't... I actually didn't pay that much attention. Was there a 308? I didn't see a hunting rifle in there.
No, there was not. Double Lammy, 2 gas cans. I think there might have been a couple med kits, but... yeah, I mean, I know you were just talking about Runamuck Lake, but it basically, this safe zone absolutely destroys what we've been talking about the current meta is, where it is the try to get the best spot, hold as long as you can, aggressively defend your position. It completely messes it up, and it's hard to aggressively defend cabins as well. So the spots that are available aren't really conducive to allowing you to have a good engagement. So it's going to be a really rough spot, and it looks like Rogue is going to choose to take one of those high spots in the mountain. So they're actually going to go a little bit farther south from the actual safe zone, or from the center of the safe zone. But there's a ton of height here where you can kind of see all the other mountains. You can see everybody going into the cabins. You'll be able to see vehicles. So again, they're getting good sight lines, but they might be one of the teams that has to rotate late this time rather than being there early to just hang out.
So this is reminiscent of what we saw in the first game as far as the style of cover that they do have, and we already saw how that ended up working out, but the difference in this cover compared to the cover that they did have, the positioning that they did have in the first game, is a little bit off that ring, as you have stated.
Had this been the situation where they were this far out in game one, I don't know that Drop would have been able to rotate to get to center safe zone because of the distance he would have had to travel solo. I don't know that it plays out the same. So you've got to be able to, if you're a late rotating team, you need to be able to rotate in with the full team going.
The ring still could go their way, though. That is the other thing to think about. This ring still could go their way.
Ring could still
it could
pull
end up
south.
It could end up collapsing on
center.
them. There is a lot of ring already to the south. You know, you almost have 2/3 of it to the south. It could end up going their way, but as you mentioned, it definitely could end up not favoring them as well. I feel like this positioning is going to be
south right now.
Yeah. There's definitely a chance.
So
now seeing Myth for the first time. Grabbing. It looks like they are still trying to attempt to grab some loot. I don't know if they're necessarily going to try to hang out there.
So it is going to go ahead and pull south, but it is going to pull southwest. So they're not quite center. We'll probably see Rogue start to rotate west a little bit to kind of get one of the other little ridge lines or fingers off the top of that mountain and take one of those just so they're a little bit closer to the safe zone. Set to destroys end of the campsite there looked pretty good. They don't have to rotate quite yet. They'll most likely be within the next safe zone as well. A lot of these other teams are going to have to transition though, and we did see Myth. So where Myth's currently at, I believe we watched Crumb and Cryptid actually play in this safe zone, that same cabin in Atlanta. So we'll see if they end up playing out of that. I think it ended up not working out great for them. I think they held on.
Long time ago, though, so they definitely did have a lot of practice on it, and the meta has changed quite a bit. We have seen quite a few changes come in. One of those changes, of course, is going to be the versus bar, which is going to be very important later on.
Rogue starting that rotation.
Yeah, Rogue definitely going to go for that rotation, but I want to peel away from Rogue for just a second here. We've already focused a lot on them, and we already have seen them accomplish quite a lot, but there are teams like Mocket and Set to Destroy X. Set to Destroy X has a similar favorable position to what they had in the first game. Didn't necessarily break that top three, which was something that we thought they could do with positioning like that. This is a team to pay attention to. Just because they're not entering this one in the top three to try to get into qualifications, they are a huge threat here. Mocket, one of your personal favorites for this one to be able to take it. Still a very viable candidate as well, but we still do have all 60 players remaining, all 12 of our teams. But by the end of this, we will have our top three advancing to Sunday.
Yeah, and these spots, so these are the cabins I was talking about earlier, and you get these fights where guys are kind of quick peeking off the tops of the roofs or maybe out of a window, stepped outside, take a couple shots. You're basically just doing a bunch of shots where you're eating away at each other's resources, but it's almost like that solo fight where we talked about, where both teams are effectively just eating away each other's and you're just trading resources rather than really netting kills. So unless you can get a good quick 2-tap and eliminate players, a lot of the times you might start running low on resources in this early game when you take fights inside these cabins.
Yeah, that's a big thing that we did talk about yesterday in solos, right? There's definitely that war of attrition. You want to be able to take those shots into a vehicle. You want to force your opponent to actually start rolling heals. You want to force out as much as you can. But if you're trading out the same amount of resources, you just made both of your teams worse. And that's definitely not something that
everybody else will love you for it.
Exactly. The other teams definitely will, but you don't want to invest so much into a battle that you end up losing the war.
100%. And we have seen Myth go ahead and rotate off. So they've already rotated to the west to get away from that cabin that they were at. And they're starting to set up. They've got the mountain to one side. They've got the trees to the other. Is the boost gone in that car? Or is he? That was strange. But they're going to be setting up here. However, the upper side of this mountain is still within the safe zone as well. So hopefully nobody rotates in over the top of them because that could spell disaster for them. Raining nades down from above and some ARs spraying down could be a big problem for them.
Another thing that was massive, talk about height advantage, that is definitely big. Other thing that was huge, grenades, we already talked about that, but we haven't talked about just how important smokes were in the last match. Smokes being one of the things that have made grenades even more important, but we can see right now that as the gas does start to collapse, how tight it has gotten. But what is it about smokes, Jason, that makes them so important here in Fives?
Options.
the opportunities that they open for you, that's the biggest part about them. You can use them defensively, you can use them offensively. They're impossible to see through now, and Jerk is just showing off his driving abilities there as he comes down in reverse full speed. Not sure. Okay. Just Jerk driving in reverse. Just
give us a little
just another
beat
day.
too as
A little
well.
bit of a honk honk. Hello, how you doing, Jerk?
Style points will not be added into the cumulative scores. We are only going to take the placements and the kills into consideration. So that play was in vain here.
Yeah, but smoke nades are huge. It can protect you. It can be used to play mind games with the teams. It adds something to the end game, which is always fun to see these guys make use of. One of the things, though, I want to touch on Myth is where the location they were at. I would have rather probably seen them go to the top of the mountain. The top of the mountain's a little bit more towards the center of the safe zone. There's actually a little bit more tree coverage and things you can do from the top there as well. And I think there's a strong chance that you could have sat there with better eye lines and things. So we'll see if this ends up working out for them playing the low side of the mountain.
Now, when we've seen rings like this in the past, sometimes you would have a ring that actually would lose a decent amount of play due to the boundaries. With a ring like that, sometimes as it starts to pull away, it's almost like you're not getting a new ring because you're gaining space in a weird way. Do you expect to see anything like this happen here, or because we have Run Amok Lake, are we just going to